Gentlemen, and welcome to the Town of Scituate Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, July 10th, 2018. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd accept an agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Mr. Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
Walk-ins. Are there any walk-ins this evening? All right. Mr. Doherty.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I expected a lot of people. I've been reading about this brown water issue, and they said they were going to come here and complain, but I don't see them, so.
What can we do, Mr. Doherty, for you?
Well, there was two things I wanted to say. Is I've experienced brown water for 41 years since I moved to Scituate. And, I was in the north side of town, and now on Third Cliff, so it's a problem that's been around that I guess as a community we should deal with it. But beyond that, it doesn't keep me awake, nor does it wake me up. And that's what I'm here really for. Since I was here last, I'm not privy to all of the, David Doherty, 122 Gilson Road, for the record. I'm not privy to all of the complaints that come in from everywhere to the Board of Health or to Al Bangert or any of you ladies and gentlemen. I'm only my next door neighbor who keeps me up to date. But between her and I, since the last meeting, we've had 20 times that we've had to say something that we've been woken up. Last 3 nights I've been woken. Now, I know you're talking about this testing program, and you're hanging your hat on it because you're trying to find some way that you can put the onus upon the owner of the wind turbine to give you financial relief, and that's a wonderful thing for the community. But meanwhile, in the interim, there's a lot of families, not just myself, that are being impacted by this thing. So I suggest, instead of keeping it going, as you said, for the testing, why don't we shut it down?
No, Mr. Doherty, we're not going to shut down the testing after spending a whole year talking with you. We're going to go through that testing. We're going to find out what we need to.
No.
I'm not having you come in here for 5 minutes and say, now shut it down after you say,
please listen
do
to
the
me.
testing.
Please
Okay.
listen to me.
2 more minutes. Go right ahead.
During the testing procedure, the thing is running. The tester has the close coordination with the owner of the turbine. He's in direct communications because they have their instruments set out there. He's got to call them, and he's got to be ready to turn it off and then back on. So what's the difference if he tells it, turn it on instead of off? The owner's going to have to be involved in it. It is no difference. Trust me, I've been out at night with these tests.
I appreciate it, but this board has made a commitment to do the testing to find out, not for just you, but for your neighbors, so that we can get to the bottom of this and ensure the public, because the people have been complaining about it, to find the directions of the most, not just the most optimal, shall we say, from a noise perspective, but even the ones that are at least, the ones that actually go above, that really impact the neighborhood, so that we can make a decision on it. I don't think this board, and we can't discuss it much further, and your time's almost up.
So you're telling me to be patient?
You have to wait until we finish the testing, Mr. Doherty.
6.5 years is a lot of patience.
Well, you've been patient for 41 years with brown water. I just asked you to wait about another 6 months.
Doesn't
so we
wake
can
me
finish
up.
it here.
It'll keep
Well,
me awake.
It could be the brown water, I don't know. But again, I appreciate you coming, okay?
All
Is
right.
anybody else here for walk-ins?
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks, Mr. Doherty. Thank you. I just need you to have a seat and give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Marguerite Moore. I live at 66 Marion Road. And although I do have a brown water issue, what I'm here tonight to talk about is there's no one controlling the leash law here in the town. I use Sand Hills Beach. It's a very small beach now. It's a beautiful beach after 4 blizzards, but there are people there with unleashed dogs.
Okay.
Now, no one is patrolling this. There are no signs up. I know there's a sign down by Jericho Road Beach that list all of the requirements, but there's nothing up at this Marion Road entrance. There were several dogs running around. One dog urinated all over my grandchildren's life jackets, boogie boards, and that type of thing. And when my daughter confronted the owner, he told her to go F herself. So we're having rude people come with unleashed dogs. You cannot use your cell phone from that beach, so you cannot call a dog officer. That type of thing. So I'm hoping maybe you could do something with a sign there.
Do you know, was this day or was it weekend?
It was 4th of July.
Okay.
The beach was mobbed,
Yep.
lots of people. There was another woman with a boogie board. She was out on her board while her 2 dogs were running all over the beach, dumping in front of people. It's a
Yep.
nuisance.
It should not be
It's a
happening.
nuisance.
And you know what? I actually was not down there. I took a peek at Marion Road entry because somebody had said it was really nice and people were down there. I
It's
didn't see the dogs.
Mhm.
But I absolutely agree. Animals, dogs are not allowed on the beach during the day. I think it's after 6 or 7 at night that they're permitted. Aside from that, they should not be there
Can
during
you
the day.
post a sign there?
That I can ask the DPW director to make sure that we have a sign there at the public entrances, the beaches. That is one. I think we can also try to talk to the police department and see if they can, probably on the weekends, to see if they can stroll and take a look, because frankly, there shouldn't be animals down there.
And they're all there, they're there all day, day after day. This
Oh,
is
you're
not
absolutely
just a-
right. There shouldn't be, because I've seen occasions where, when in particular, a child who was bitten by an animal, a dog, people were bringing it to a ball field. The kid was petrified, had to get off the ground into his father's arms. Never forgot that. Dogs aren't allowed on the ball fields, shouldn't be there when they have games. Likewise, they're not, and they shouldn't be there during the beach during the days. They can have full rein during the off-season, but not during the beach season. I couldn't agree more with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, can we get some signs?
I already sent Mike an email requesting a sign go back up there. There was a sign up there, might have come down with the projects that were going on, just never put back up.
Is there one at Egypt? We should make sure there's one at all of them, because there were dogs at Egypt Beach when I was there this weekend as well.
Sean?
Is it guarded? That particular beach guarded?
I think so.
It's not.
No, it's not. No, not Marion.
All right, I was just going to say, because I was, and I don't want them to take any heat, I was at Humrock over 4th of July, and I don't know if there were signs there, but the minute I saw 2 people come down with dogs on a leash, the guards very nicely went up to them and told them, you have to be outside the flags, and no altercations or anything. But they weren't there for 30 seconds, and the guards went right up to them. So it's just unfortunate we don't have a guard there, just
Yeah.
9 people.
Let's address it that way, but if it-
Probably should have a guard.
It's, that's a whole nother issue, but we'll get signs down there, and we'll also see with the police. And then if there's still ongoing issues, please come back or contact me. I'm happy to try to see what the next step could be.
I sent an email to Chief Stewart to keep an eye out. Yes,
Thank you.
guys, I haven't done that.
Okay. Quick action. I know that's,
Oh, just-
normally it takes a day or two. It happens. So thank you very much. Any other walk-ins? All right, seeing none, just going to move on quickly to Jim, town, report of the town administrator.
Very quickly, 3 quick things. First, I want to congratulate Nancy and the financial team. The town has once again received the Government Finance Officer Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellent Financial Reporting for our CAFA. Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. That's a tremendous amount of work, and it's a really very good achievement. Most of the work is done by Nancy with help from her team, so congratulations to her for the 3rd straight? 4th straight.
Good job.
Thank you, Nancy. Wow.
They sent me one too, I don't know why I got them. From the board, we're doing the work now on Jericho and Hadley. They started today. We're Brian Jericho, down to the Hadley and up Hadley, new sidewalk in Hadley. Rebuild that intersection to make it safer for pedestrians, kind of slow some cars down going around that corner, so that has started. Probably seen the carnivals down at Cole Parkway, which is a pretty good time. Lastly, we had 8 employees from DPW, police and fire complete 2 days of drone training the last 2 days. They now can take an exam and become licensed drone pilots. As a municipality or a commercial operation, you have to be licensed to fly a drone. We can't just put them up ourselves. The flexibility that will give us to do surveying, search and rescue, accident reconstruction, checking buildings, you name it, will be enormous. The only town around here right now I know that is licensed is Hanover. So the employees completed today. Within the next 2 weeks, they'll take their exams and we'll have licensed drone pilots from various departments that will be able to deploy these machines when we need to use them. And I think once we get to use them, I think I told a couple of board members, the gentleman doing the class had a drone, folded up, it's maybe that big. And he took it out this morning, he programmed it, he flew an automatic grid of the public safety complex and provided us with a complete layout of the complex plus a 3D rendering of the building just from the drone pictures. It was amazing. It took about 5 minutes to program the flight and go up and do it. So checking buildings, checking snow loads, checking whatever we need to do. I think the flexibility that we'll have to be able to deploy these and have people licensed and trained to do it will be fantastic. So we'll see the fruits of that. As you know, we've flown the seawalls a couple times. It saves us having someone actually walk the seawalls after storms. But to be able to check damage and get those out there in real time, would really save us a lot of time and help us with our FEMA reimbursements. So,
Do they-
that's all I have for today.
Do they zoom in really close, Jim? You know, when they look
They
at the
can.
seawalls? Yeah, okay.
They can. The drones have a collision avoidance, but you can either zoom in or you can get right up close to it. You just need to make sure you have eyes on the drone, or somebody has eyes on the drone that has eyes on you to tell you, okay, that's close enough. But, they do on the bridges, they do inspections of 1,000-foot towers, so they can get as close as you need to get, depending on what the drone you have now.
Tony?
Yeah, just two questions, Jim. Any update on the lights on the basketball courts?
We get an electrician out there, Kevin, for the basketball courts?
I'll have to confirm with Mike. I spoke
Yeah,
to
we
Mike.
gotta get, as I told you, it's a little more complicated with just besides lights out.
Yeah, I was out there the other night, there's only one that's working, and these are the months when the
There's a
kids are
couple on
using.
during the day, I went out there that day, there were 2 or 3 on, so it's not the
Yeah.
lights, so we gotta get an electrician out there, so it hasn't dropped off the plate.
Okay. And the other thing, while Kevin's here, maybe we can get an update on the brown water. I know we've all been hearing about it a little bit, and that the volume of water processed through our plant almost triples this time of year, but
Sure. I can do it real quick. You might have saw some of my comments on Fox 25. From what I understand from our staff, from the staff in the water department, the actual complaints for groundwater have been down significantly this year since we finished doing those projects that we've already done into Flushing. As I mentioned, we've got $22 million that we're doing the water improvements. We've already spent about $20 million of that. The next phase is Oceanside, where a lot of the complaints came this last time, get rid of those old pipes. Normally, the water department does about 1 million gallons a day of water. Last week, we were doing over 2.5 million gallons of water a day, and just that much flow going through the system riles everything up, causes that water to get bad and look bad. So the pipe replacement is ongoing. The next phase is going to be Oceanside. We'll finish permitting it and designing it this spring and the fall, the summer, and the fall. We'll get it bid out next year. Kevin, is the plan?
Yeah, we're looking at it and seeing when we're set. The gas company's out there now doing a new gas line, so we can't have both on top of each other, and then we're gonna have to update our drawings with the gas line as built, so that we don't have any collisions or issues with breakage up there.
Again, the water, the colors caused by iron and manganese. Well 17, we're putting in the green filter on well 17 to try to take some of that iron and manganese out, so.
is that the only area? Aren't there other areas that are getting affected?
Green sand.
I know that a lot on the Sand Hills areas are feeling, I know you heard some complaints there. How about other areas of town?
We've got calls in other areas, we've got calls in a lot of places we typically don't. The whole system's being affected with a lot of flows.
So one of the thoughts I had was, one was maybe putting this on as an agenda item at our next meeting, go through it, but in the meantime, I was wondering if maybe 2 members of the board might want to, as water commissioners, meet with Jim, Kevin, and Sean, and go through things to bring an update. I wasn't sure if that was something that people might be interested in.
Sure,
I'd like to participate.
Anybody else?
sure, yeah.
So Karen and Sean maybe meet, and then what we'll do is we'll have a discussion at our next meeting on just an update on the water and alternatives and solutions, and also expansion, things of that nature I think would be important for the board to know.
Great.
If we're having so many problems with dirty water in Sand Hills, why are you developing the proving ground area right now? Why would we need more houses now if we have a water problem that's on?
So here's the thing, I'll answer it quickly. We can't really get into a big discussion because of open meeting law. In other words, we need to be able to say we're going to have a discussion on water, and that's why, otherwise, if we start getting into a huge discussion of it, people are going to say you're in violation of open meeting law because it wasn't noticed, and so therefore people don't have a chance to come to discuss it, so on and so forth. Expansion of the Toll Brothers or the proving grounds, it's going to be new pipes, new sewer, and everything else. That's not going to be contributing to the existing problem. The existing problem is what's in the ground right now with the pipes, and what's in the pipes, which happens to be the brown gunk. I wish we had a pipe to show you, but it's iron and manganese that actually coagulate the pipe. And so consequently, when there's a rush of water, all that stuff that's been collecting over years and years and years and years that basically enclose that pipe breaks loose because of a fire or the opening of the hydrants or a demand. So when you have 2 million, 2.5 million demand for water during the day, it's a constant rush that breaks apart the particles, that creates the the brown in the water, and the question is, where is all that brown? Which pipe is it in? Is it in the old pipes, which ones we replaced, or are they in the newer ones? It's hard to figure it out because they're all subsurface. So I think this is a discussion I think the board has had back in April. I'd like to have it again because obviously this past week, and I think there's some people who are irate, I'd encourage them to come, and if you know anybody in Sand Hills, which I do, I'm like, come to this meeting so we can discuss it. I think the more people understand it, the more they'll realize that there are a few solutions, but there's no really one good solution that's going to resolve it. But any event. All right, so moving on right now. Any other further questions, Town Administrator? Good, let's move on to the next one. Quickly, outdoor entertainment permits. First one is 7 Lincoln Ave. This is for a August 25th, 2018 live band and DJ from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Good evening.
Hi,
Could you identify yourself
thank you.
and your address?
I'm the property owner, I'm Paul Bowers. I live at 7 Lincoln Ave, and my family has been in that house since 1954, so one of the oldest residents of Third Cliff, and proud to be a resident of Scituate.
Good. So you're having, obviously, DJ, you want it from 5 to 11 p.m.
My niece is getting married, and we're hiring a very professional outfit to put a tent up. It's going to be 45 by 84 feet with 160 guests, but we're going to truck everybody in from the First Parish Church. There won't be any cars parked on the street, and
Have you notified your butters? That's the only thing that's important for
right,
this.
we want to do this, and then we have the list of abutters, so we're going to send the letters out.
You haven't done it yet?
No.
Have you? Okay. I think you need to do that only because if somebody complains.
Sure.
So let me ask you this, because it's August 25th, you got plenty of time.
Right.
Can you maybe send that out between now and our next meeting?
Sure.
We put you on, and
Yeah,
I say, I hate to
no
have you come
problem.
back, but if something happens and the neighbor says, I don't want to hear it, we kind of have to hear it.
That's no problem.
I don't mean to,
Well, when my niece called me and said to come in to do this, so have you mailed the letters out, she said, I don't think they require it, but that's fine.
Hey, let me ask you,
Yeah.
is will the board
They don't really
entertain,
listen to you, do
Yeah,
they?
no one ever listens,
do it
right?
subject to any complaints? How about that? I'll tell you what, why don't
Yeah.
we do it this way?
Okay,
You send them out, give Lorraine the people, the list who you send it out to,
right,
and I'll entertain a motion that will be subject to nobody complaining, and if that's the
Right.
case, you're golden. If not, then I'll just have you come back in
great.
to discuss it.
Thank you,
Is that
Mr.
okay?
Chairman, that's very nice of you, I appreciate it.
So, is there a motion, or is there questions from the board? I don't mean to...
No questions.
Move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to Brittany Caniff and Paul Bowers for a live band and DJ at a private event on August 25th, 2018 at 7 Lincoln Ave from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m.
5 p.m.
Excuse me, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Contingent on no one making any complaints.
Great, thank
Motion
you.
by Mr. Vignani.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Canfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Congratulations,
Mr.
all right?
Chairman, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Next, we're going to go to Riva, Heritage Days, August 3rd, from an outdoor entertainment permit from 5 p.m. until 11 p.m. for band singers. And if you could identify yourself for the record.
Kara Tondorf from Riva Restaurant.
So you're looking, Ms. Turndorf, this is Friday, correct?
Correct.
From 5 until 11, okay. And there's no music on Friday, right?
On
Heritage
Friday,
Day?
no, on Saturday
No.
and Sunday. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not for
Saturday and
Heritage
Sunday,
Days.
yeah.
Okay. Who is it you're having?
We have Aldous Collins and then Veer Hill to start. We might have an acoustic person from 5 to 6, but
And whereabouts are they actually going to be placed? Outside, I assume.
patio. We've done it for 6 years now.
Now, I'd heard, I'm not sure if it was a year ago or not, but one of your singers had actually gotten up on a roof. And I'm just saying that can't happen.
Okay, I can
And,
tell him that.
Because nobody should be getting up on roofs because
Yeah.
it's a danger. And somebody could get hurt, not just the person getting on the roof, but the part.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'll talk to him. A good friend of mine lives adjacent to Riva,
Okay.
and last year he opted for the fire escape, which was much more reasonable and,
It's just that if somebody gets hurt, and I'm just saying that then I would be in a position to say that
understand.
Riva should get any
I
other one.
understand,
That's
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Yep.
Because it's dangerous
Yep.
to be doing that. All right.
totally understand.
Questions at all from the board?
Is this part of the Heritage Days or separate? Are
Well-
you part of the chamber?
It's not part of the chamber, no. So it's First Friday. We've always had music since we've been a part of Riva, like will be 6 years. So we used to do dinner service and have music, and the patio would get so crowded, just with all the people doing, it's like the Luminara on First Friday. So 3 years ago, we decided to just pull the dinner service, and we just do like appetizers, and makes more space for people, so it's not so jam-packed. And this is what we've been doing. So it's not technically part of the chamber. It's more of an independent thing.
Sean?
Sounds great to me. I just wondered if there are any butters. I don't live there, Kara, and I know you've done it.
I sent a letter out. I
Oh, you
have
did?
copies if
Okay.
you guys want.
No, it's all right. You notified them, and they
Yeah.
saw the agenda, and it's once a year. The summers are short. But and then again, there are people that live right near you, as you know.
Yeah, and it's
Try to
like a
balance it.
once a year. When we have a entertainment license out there that we very rarely use. I mean, I have music from 3 to 6 on Sundays, acoustic. So this is like a once in a summer thing. We haven't had any complaints in the past. So,
Good. I'll take a motion,
I have one more question.
please.
So that band is getting ridiculously popular. Congratulations to them. But do you have any occupancy limits that you're going to enforce, or what if people are spilling? I'm worried about people spilling to the street. I know the police chief has
sure,
said he's okay with it.
All I can say is that, I try to learn something new every year when we do this, and this year I have, and we really haven't had any problems. I think one of the things about this band is that the people that enjoy their music are they're in their 30s and 40s and 50s, like they're older and much, I'd say, not as.
She's going to tread really lightly right
Hey,
now.
I'm 41. But they're not wild. I mean, they enjoy listening to music and having some drinks, but we've never had issues.
It's more
that
the
you might-
popularity that I'm concerned about. They really do draw a crowd now. So I just hope you'll be mindful and make sure that your guests aren't.
I have 6 security. They all
Okay.
are. I mean, every single one of them is a U.S. military. I mean, they're very, very diligent people, and so I make sure that I have that.
Tony?
Yeah, Kara, I've been there on the nights, and it does get crowded there. I will say, I haven't seen people spilling out into the streets or anything like that, and the way the patio is situated, there are a lot of different exit ways, so, there's almost 3 or 4 different ways that you can enter or exit, so it is crowded, but I think it's safe, and I would just reiterate what they're saying, just talk to Aldous and have him, just be safe and not go up on the roofs and on the,
Definitely-
and the
definitely
fire,
talk to
even the
them.
fire extinguishers, fire escape's a little
Yeah.
shaky on the right, but it's a fun time, and it's usually well kept under control, so just food for thought.
Yeah, I will absolutely talk to them about that.
All right. And that's only because we're not trying to prevent it, it's just we want to make sure nothing happens, and then people turn around and say, why, if you knew in the background that this had happened, not you,
Yeah.
they're going to come to us and say, if you knew that, so that's all I'm saying. All right, entertain a motion unless.
We have
no
one more,
question.
I think we have one more question. Did you have an opportunity to speak with the chief? Because we just have a note that he is requesting that there is a police detail on site.
I did get a call today from
Okay.
someone.
All right.
He said that, yeah.
Okay. So just so you're aware of that, so the motion will be pending your hiring of a police detail from 5 PM to closing,
Okay.
okay? I just want to make sure we have that in the motion. All right, let me make a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to Riva Restaurant located at 116 Front Street for a full band on the patio Friday, August 3rd, 2018, from 5 PM to 11 PM, pending scheduling of a police detail from 5 PM to closing.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by
Second?
Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, going to move on to a 7:30 discussion vote of the Sister City logo. I don't know if Pat Jacquard is here, I don't see her, but she's the chair of the Sister City project. I do know that the logo is a part of our packet. Did anybody have questions? Do you want to wait and see if Pat is here, or what?
We'll give her a couple minutes.
Okay.
Jump on something.
So let's go over to the next one, which is an executive action. Actually, strike that. Actually, let's go to 7:40 interviews. How about that? So our first interviewee B, let's see here. I think it's historic, right? So, Mr. Robert Brand. Good evening. And welcome. Mr. Brand, you're looking to be on the Historical Commission. I see your post in Scituate's Remembered about, I think it's the Historical Society, so I know you like history. So why
Yes,
do you want to
I'm-
be on the commission?
Just so you know, I'm the old curmudgeon that's there on Saturdays,
That's good.
the
That's
Historic
good.
Society. I would like to be on the Historic Commission because, number one, it would be a continuation of service to the town in my family. Most of you probably know my aunt was town clerk for 25 years back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yep.
And my great-grandfather also served as a road surveyor back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I have a deep love of history. I am completely enthralled by the Scituate's history, and I think its history and heritage and culture is what gives Scituate its uniqueness as a town. And while I'm not opposed to development, I am opposed to overdevelopment, and I don't want to see something happen in Scituate that says, hey, we tore down the last building on the East Coast that had that kind of architecture. I think it's important that we preserve our heritage and our history, because that's how we really prepare for the future and handle the future correctly.
I agree. That's true, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's a very important commission. They do a lot of hard work. They research various buildings. There are occasions where people will come and say, I have a house, but you know what, it needs to be torn down. How do you feel about that?
I've been attending the commission meetings for about the last year and observed the workings of it, how they are very thorough in their investigations, and how number of people on the commission, they do a yeoman's job in vetting the things they need to check out. They deep research on houses and properties. And I feel that when their decisions are made, that they are making them to the best of their knowledge, they're making the right decision.
How do you feel about somebody coming and saying, I have a house that's built in 1850 or 1870 or 1820, and say, I want to tear it down? Do you think you can be impartial, and do you think that's something that can happen?
The impartiality would come in seeing, does the building have any true historic significance, like did George Washington sleep there or something?
Right.
Okay.
He slept a lot of places.
Oh, I know. Is there a chance of saving the building or a part of the building? Is it financially and structurally feasible? Or is it something that the foundation's all gone, or it's physically unsound? And then, could we move the building? Look at all the options before giving the okay to tear it down.
Well, thank you. Questions from my board? Tony?
Yeah, just to build on that a little bit, what are your thoughts if the resident of the building is 93 years old, his health goes south, and he has to sell it right away to pay for his living in some sort of assisted living place? And the delays could be a year, 2 years to sell the property.
That's one that would have to take some deep soul searching on. Okay, I wouldn't want to
It's hard.
come right out with.
I guess my point
yeah.
is, it's not
Yes,
as easy.
It's
We
not easy
all,
to make the decisions.
yeah, we all feel very strong about the history of the town, but it's a tough commission to be on, because you have to deal with situations like
And I
that.
have seen some fairly tough decisions made over the last year. And right for now, I think that they've made the right decisions.
Yeah, they do a great job.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask, you've attended, Bob, and you said you've been going to their meetings.
I've
You
been
have
going to
no-
their meetings for
Yeah.
about the last year.
Okay, you have time to continue to go. make that
Oh, yes,
commitment.
yeah, well, my wife would love to get me out of the house. I'm done.
Maura?
I just have one question, pardon my ignorance, but would there ever be a time where there's a conflict between the Historical Society goals and the Historical Commission's intentions or mission?
I don't
Strong
believe,
both?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because Doug Litchfield, who was, Steve Litchfield, who was on the commission, he is a trustee of the Historical
Oh,
Society.
society, okay.
Yes. I'm not a trustee, I'm just a Saturday volunteer, so,
Well, that's yeoman's work to sit there on a Saturday, so thank you.
no, there's a little more work to sit on Saturday, because we have the people come in,
Yep.
we have to show them around, and since I've
I
been
know.
putting things online about it, there's actually now a Saturday attendance, people come in.
Oh, good for you.
Good, thank you.
Well, Mr. Brand, no further questions?
No?
Well, thank you. We're going to be voting on that later on this evening, okay? Ms. Humphrey, Historic Commission, and I apologize. Sietska. Thank you very much. I didn't want to butcher it, but thank you very much. Now, you're interested in the Historical Commission. Why is that?
I'm interested in the commission because I'm very interested in history, the history of a town, the uncovering of history, the teaching that happens in this town. I think my husband started me out on learning the Oaken Bucket song, which he learned in 3rd grade when he was here, and that probably set me on my way to want to know more about Scituate. We're very new permanent residents here.
Why the commission? I know you said you're interested in history.
Yeah.
There's the society, I know, which is a
Yeah,
different
but yes,
historical
I know.
component.
I'm just very interested in a number of issues related to history, including the seascapes, the landscapes, the way how on 3rd Cliff, for the 50 years that we've been coming down here, there is this beautiful view of 4th Cliff, and all of a sudden it's gone. And I would be very interested in seeing not only buildings protected who deserve to be protected because of its history, but I'm also very interested in the view, the landscapes, the seascapes, and preservation of that when it makes sense.
That's a tall order, I can tell you that.
I know, and and it may not be possible, but it is. You asked me what my interest
No,
is,
I appreciate it.
But
That's
I
a
think
fair
that is
question, fair
a
answer.
piece that is a little overlooked often.
Questions?
Have you been to any meetings?
No, because I'm very newly here, but I have read up on a number of the commission studies, their minutes, and I think the more I keep on reading, I just finished reading the studies that were done in quite a while ago on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Cliff, among other things. But it is a very challenging committee, and I think that it is important. You may be needing an architect to go and beyond there, and certainly I'm not that person. I'm not an architect, but I am.
You said you're new. How new? When did you move to town?
So we permanently moved here a month ago, but we bought our house a year ago, and then we have come often here because my husband was born in Scituate, and he never got it out of his blood, and our son moved to Scituate, and so we finally figured we had to catch up here.
Well, good, good. Any other questions from the board?
No, I don't.
You have an impressive resume.
I know, I'm on page 3.
I do enjoy trying to, I like small government because I feel that that's where things really happen.
I like the
So
fact you're
kudos
interested.
to you.
Like you.
Yeah, I like the fact that you're here officially a month and you're interested in getting involved. That's rare to see, but thank you. Appreciate that. All right, well, good. Like I said, decision we're going to be voting on a little later on tonight, okay?
Thank you.
Going to move over now to Scituate Cultural Council, I'm looking for Tracy Tallner Kelly. Is Ms. Kelly here? All right, so I'll swing back with her. Danielle Discro? Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So why is it that you're interested in the Scituate Cultural Council?
Well, I just think creativity is so important. I write a blog, a home and lifestyle blog, and I have little kids that grow up here too, and I just think it's so important to like cherish the arts and, you know, tell stories. And
Do you have any ideas that they could go in a direction or do anything more?
no, I mean, I'm very new to the whole thing. I'm active in Scituate Education Foundation as well, and I was president of the Newcomers Club 1 year, so.
It's a really dynamic council, which has so much, which I'm always interested in. That's why I was curious, because I'm like, the ceiling is there's no ceiling. It depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
They've done some things that have been really unique, like painting the crosswalk.
Yeah, that was
I
amazing.
really wish we could do that again, or paint a mural and just every year, every Heritage Day, just do a new one or do something. I just think it's...
And what they did at Lucky Finn too, I mean, that wasn't the cultural council, but that installation, the flowers.
Yes.
That was just so beautiful. And I think there's so many artistic people down here on the
Yeah.
South Shore and in Scituate that it would be nice to kind of be able to all collaborate together.
coalesce it together and do something. Yeah. Well, you got my vote. Anybody else questions?
Have you had an opportunity to meet with any of the other council, committee members, or?
Yeah, Sarah, I'm good friends with. And
Oh, wait, you brought the ringer in, right? Okay, that was my question.
I'm sorry, did someone ask, have you been to any of the meetings?
no, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. How long have you been in town?
10 years.
10 years,
Yeah.
great. I see you've studied art and television production
Yeah,
in
in London, yep.
in London, and photographer, it seems like you cover a lot of the arts, so.
Yeah.
It's certainly a committee we're trying to expand on and look at other areas of Scituate that we can impact, like John mentioned, the sidewalks and crosswalks that we've done, so. It's certainly an area that we need help, so.
No other questions? All right.
Well, just maybe a comment. What, some of your other ideas, Danielle, and maybe some of the other business districts besides the harbor, any other thoughts?
I mean, I think it would be amazing to do like, I've gone to blog conferences as well because I do like DIY stuff, but I think it'd be amazing to do kind of like a maker's retreat where artists in our area could, you know, teach like hand lettering or do like floral arranging or. I mean, I feel like so many people that I meet don't think that they're creative, and I'm like, you are. Like, everybody is, you know? I just feel like sometimes when we grow up, we kind of lose touch of that creativity. I mean, only when I started my blog 7 years ago, I'd never painted furniture, I'd never done watercolor, I hadn't written, and I feel like once you just start doing stuff, more and more comes to you. It's kind of like, you know how they say like love is limitless? I feel like creativity is limitless, so.
Well, that's a good idea for maybe getting back on the council and saying maybe it's Pier 44.
Yeah, I think there's
option
so
to do.
much that could be done with that
Nice
building.
idea. Yeah.
You know, I feel like you could put like shiplap up and do it all white, and it could be like a gallery space.
Well, hold that thought until you're on the council, and then
All right.
we'll
Okay.
talk about that in the future. Yeah.
I want you to call the library director tomorrow, because she wants to do a maker's fair.
I think it would be amazing. And it would be amazing there, I mean, with the water in the background.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Again, we'll be making a decision, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get on. Denise Parker, please, come on up. You've already heard my questions, so you should be able to, like, tell me why you're interested in, and you have my vote. How's that?
Good.
Relax.
Well, I have only been in Scituate 3 years, newly retired. I've done a lot of work full-time, and I thought my design background and mine having been involved in a lot of planning and artwork and other things, this would be a good opportunity for me to give back to the community on some of the work that I'd be able to do to help them out. to look at, good with numbers, look at funding, understand how it's going to work, what's going to benefit the most, and where I think it's going to be a good place to put money that's going to benefit the whole community. I think it's important to have, to promote arts, and not just arts, but science, innovation center type of things where people can come and maybe share ideas on other things besides painting or art, but might be science, it might be marine life, it could be something that is also part of the culture here. So I just thought I could hopefully contribute to the town, being a newbie here, and that was really it.
It's a good council. One of the things in some boards, some committees, sometimes you have to say no, and that's one of the toughest things
That's
of being a
right.
part of board or a council or a committee. This one, you don't have to necessarily say no. It's kind of say, how do we do it, and why?
How do we do it?
It's a lot, and that's a nice thing about some of these boards, when you're not put in that position. It allows you to expand and
Right.
think beyond, and
Exactly.
this is one of those. So I think it has a lot of potential. It's done well so far, but it has so much more it can go if it so chooses, so I appreciate you.
And I think, to
applying.
help engage other citizens in the town that may not have been engaged in some of this,
Right.
I think is important to build the community. And whether it's, high school kids or, college kids or people that are just like myself, have just moved here, been here 3 years, want to help the community, want to do something. So I think it's an important kind of outreach.
Questions from my board?
Great. Thank you for stepping up. I appreciate it.
I could tell by your handwriting that you're a designer.
Yeah.
Of that architectural handwriting. And I think it's nice to have somebody with your business acumen also to bridge that creative side of the brain and the practical side of the brain to exactly do what you had expressed, which is to help different projects move forward. Have you thought of anything in addition to?
Not really. I haven't really focused on the scope of other things that the Cultural Committee has done. I've read some of the stuff that they have done about, music programs and art programs, and so I haven't really focused on a lot of the programs that they've been asked to look at or participate in or fund or approve funding for. So really haven't had a chance to do that.
No, you raise a good point, too. I'd love to have an update at some point. I really don't know what they've done in the last year and a half.
So what we'll do is we'll ask
Later on, yeah.
maybe one of the members of the council to circle back maybe in August, or if not, early September.
that'd be great.
For maybe just a update, if that works.
Sarah's going to issue that.
That's why I'm staring at her.
No
Jump
pressure.
on, we give you responsibility.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I appreciate it, okay?
welcome.
All right. George Humphrey. Sounds familiar. Mr. Humphrey, you've already been introduced to the board. Thank you. So you're interested in the Coastal Advisory, and then the other was the Scituate Cultural Council, as the second.
Right.
So why are you interested in the Coastal Advisory? Then tell us why you're interested in the cultural.
Okay. Well, my wife and I are avid, we live on the Herring River, James Landing. We're avid kayakers. We see the sea come and go, obviously, every day, as many Scituate residents do. And we've noticed even we've owned for a year here. I lived here as a kid through the 8th grade, and we've already noticed enormous changes, both in the force of the tides and the way the coastline is changing. And would like very much to be part of that conversation as to how we prepare short-term to preserve what we have, consistent with the environment, and then look at the long-term, 25, 50 years, and have some realistic contingency plans looking forward for the coast.
Have you been to any of the meetings?
I have not, no. As I say, we've been full-time in Scituate only for,
And I say that because it's, town has done a lot of work, both with our coastal resource officer, reporting a lot of ideas in the various sections of the town. It's a very important committee, and obviously after the recent storms in the past few years, I think people begin to understand that the water seems to get a little higher and higher after these storms. I highly encourage anybody who's interested, go to the meetings, whether you're a member or not. I'm just saying that because it's a very important, and there's a lot of, I say technical, you don't have to be a professional in a certain area to be able to figure out water's rising, what do we do? But I'm like, it's a really, a very important commission. So if you didn't get on that one, why are you interested in the Cultural Council?
Well, I spent my career as a college administrator, but before that, I was a theater major. So I have a lot of passion still in my soul for the performing arts in particular. And I would be very much interested in helping the council develop programming in that area, maybe connected with some of the other commissions in town, historical, for example, that are doing projects. I think the visual arts are very well represented. Music may be second, but the theater in particular, I think is probably it's there, but it's just less well represented. We have a tremendous perforing arts facility
I was going to say,
right
we've
here
got
at the
a
high
great
school.
thing that's a good start, yeah.
That's
actually a good idea.
Middle school. So that's an area that I would very much like to help the town work on.
Questions from my board?
The opening that we have on the coastal coalition is what? I mean, he would be a coastal member being on the,
Right, there's only one opening right now, I think.
and do you know, I'm looking,
I
where
think it's
are-
inland.
Is it in the inland or coastal? Does anyone know?
I wrote inland on there, but I think
That's open?
Yeah, it's
Is it?
inland.
Okay, all right.
the way that they revise the charge, more flexibility.
So what happens is, we've designated, instead of just having a number of people, we've
Right.
designated certain representatives throughout the town to be able to hopefully give advice to the, for this commission. So the opening that's open is one that's inland.
Right.
You're inland, I guess, unless we say you're on
Right.
North River, but regardless, you know.
Right.
It's a little fun. It's
Small things. Other questions?
I have a quick question. What does MCPHHS stand for?
It's Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. They decided to just use the acronym, but yeah, it's actually the oldest college in the city of Boston, founded in 1823. So
Right? If you had to choose between the two, is your coastal preference?
I would say yes, but I just want to become involved in some way, and would happily accept either one.
Okay.
And I accept the suggestion of going to the Coastal Commission meetings, whether I'm a member or not. It's
Yeah,
definitely an
that's what we-
interest.
Absolutely,
We
yeah.
definitely recommend that to everybody.
I do.
Unfortunately, there's more people than slots available.
Right.
So we ask you to participate because you don't have to be on the member to be
I'm happy
heard.
to play it that way.
Right?
All right, well, good. Appreciate it very much. Like I said, we'll be voting on it, George,
Okay.
shortly, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Moving
you.
on, David Sinkowski?
Sinkowski.
Sinkowski. Mr. Sinkowski, you're interested in the waterways?
Yes, sir.
So, why? How about that?
I moved here 20 years ago from Detroit, Michigan area. And one of the things that I was most taken back with is the amount of public access to the waterways, the harbor. You didn't have one beach, you had 2, 3, 4 beaches. And I thought to myself, this is it's a pretty special place. And I raised my kids here, and we spend an enormous amount of time boating, kayaking, and using that area. And to get to the kind of the ending, I'm kind of at a place now where I don't travel as much, and I could give back, and this is something I know something about, and I thought I'd start here.
Have you been to any of the meetings so far?
No, I have to be honest, I've not. I read the minutes from the last one and agenda for the next one coming up, and I was I didn't realize that, I'd be quite open about the interest in clamming and other areas they're trying to develop, and I thought that was fantastic. So, well, kudos to them. They're doing a great job.
Tony?
Is there a specific issue that you are interested in right now that they're looking at, or is there
No,
a
no,
certain
I just,
topic?
I think it's one of the great attributes of the town, as I mentioned, and I would be interested in defending it and making it better, and however you do that. I'll give you a working example, and this may seem silly, but I'm on vacation this week, and I was on the North River, and there was someone racing up and down the entrance with a jet ski, about 40 miles per hour, which that's the South River, and the marking for the channel is clearly in the North River, about 20 yards away. So I watched it for a while, and then when they went up and down the North River, I called the harbor master. I just said, this is something going on, you might be aware of it. So they dispatched a boat. Takes about a half hour. So the boat gets there, and by now they're up the South River, and it's dead low tide at 3:30 today, so you couldn't go up the South River even if you wanted to, not in a larger boat. So I don't know what happened. I left, and my daughter looked at me and said, well, why'd you do that? And I told her if people don't stick their neck out once in a while when they see something, it's not going to get better. So yeah, I feel that way, and I hope it comes across. So.
Great. Well, this is another one that I'd say it's a very popular committee.
Yeah.
And if there's very few spots available, but what I'd recommend is go to the meetings. You know, you can participate from, not that you're not going to get on, but if you don't, I would recommend all the 10 or 12 people that have asked to be on this committee to go and participate.
I will, thank you. And I have to tell you, one other thought as I was driving away and I'm talking to my daughter about it, the thought occurred to me is, you know, the harbor master, and I've said this before, does a wonderful job, but you can't be in all places at all times, and it's a Tuesday afternoon, all right?
No.
But I wonder, do they collaborate with Marshfield? Is there an agreement that says on the Tuesday afternoons we cover it, and on Wednesdays you do? And by the way, these conversations may already happen. I have no idea, but that's just what comes to mind. And how do you network and then do a more efficient job of protecting? Because it's not just unsafe. It's people like that are eroding the environment. It's on many levels. It's not a good thing. So.
You're right. Great. Thanks.
All right, John?
All righty.
I was just going to ask you one question, Mr. Sinkovsky. You said you were a boat owner for many years. Do you keep it in the harbor or in the river?
I do,
Okay.
yeah.
And any changes that you've observed that have been positive or something that you think needs addressing?
No, I think. No, I'm sorry. I think it's. I don't find
Don't
any
be sorry.
criticism with it. No, I think they do a wonderful job, and no, I leave it at that. They're doing a good
Great.
job. Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
I've known of Dave for quite a few years now, and anytime I see him, it's usually out in his boat. So he'd be a great addition to the waterways. I just have one question for you, and if you don't know how to answer it, that's fine, because I don't even know how I feel about it. Do you think Scituate does enough for the transient boaters? Transient boaters, people come in from out of town. Do you think we do enough? Do you don't think we do enough? Because other applicants have brought it up, and I kind of was a little surprised. I would like to think we do enough to get them to come here, stay here, go to the restaurants, and stay at the Clipper Ship, and then,
Yeah, I think whatever you can do to maximize the space, because it brings revenue in, not just you're renting a space, but using, as you mentioned, the restaurants and such. I have no idea what the waiting list is. If you're coming into town, is it difficult? I know when I motor over to Provincetown, and if it's a weekend, you're probably not going to get a spot. Now, here in Scituate on I don't know, on one of our holidays, I don't know. But I think anything you can do to increase that is a good idea. And I was reading the minutes from the last meeting where they talked about there should be a mandatory notice if you're out, if you're away from your slip for 24 hours so the town can rent it. And I think all of us, I always thought that was a rule anyway. So when we all have mechanical problems with boats and you pull it out and you tell the harbor master, it's yours, Right. But I also say that over the last 20 years, I've never seen it used. Okay. So you always make them aware that the slip's available, but I don't know if it's just supply and demand or.
Right.
But
okay. Well,
yeah.
Thanks for stepping up, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Craig Rosenquist. Craig here.
Before he starts, I just was texted. He has to say hi to Paula and Pam because they're watching you at home. All right? Got a text message earlier.
Well, good evening and welcome. So you're interested in the waterways. Tell us why. Give us a little background.
You know,
How's that?
been in town for 25 years or more. Had a boat all that time, either in the harbor or in the river. I think, you know, where I'm at an age where I can spend some time helping the town, and that's where I like to spend my time. Spend a lot of time on the river, clamming and you know, kayaking, boating, and it's what I love. So if it's a way for me to give back to the town, I'd like to learn how to work with the committee. I've been online, saw some of the minutes of the last few meetings, and see what they do, and learn from that, and see if I can contribute.
And you're an engineer by training? That's your background?
Yeah, engineer, yeah. Sales engineer.
Okay.
Any topics of interest to you that are going on right now in the harbor?
Probably not in the harbor, but in the river. What interested me was the issue of commercial shellfishing, and how the commission is dealing with that. That's a real interest to me.
It is. Good.
All right.
Not right now, nope.
Sean?
I think an interest in shellfishing might be an understatement, if I'm not mistaken. He went clamming on his honeymoon. There isn't anyone in the area that I know of that knows more about shellfishing, clamming than Craig. I've been with him many times. So I think he also would be a great asset to the commission as far as, in every aspect, but especially in this, the reseeding, the harvesting,
Yeah, I was involved with there was a couple of cohog seedings. They brought up like 5,000 pounds of cohogs from like Fall River or New Bedford and seeded the river. Did that a couple of times.
Right. So, like I said, I don't think he gives himself enough credit, and you know, and I know he'd be a great asset. He has the time, and you've been in town for, that I know of, at least 20 years now or something.
Yeah, 20 years where we're at now, and 7 or 10 years out on the West End.
Yep.
So a long time.
Well, shellfishing is, I find that very interesting, considering there's a lot of potential in Cohasset Harbor, a lot of areas there that the town owns, and
Yeah, Bassing's
obviously-
Beach.
Yeah, all up and around that area. I'm like, I'd love to see if we could explore that. I know we're looking towards the harbor a little bit, but that's a little crowded. But I also see the potential, obviously, the North River to some degree, but I'm very interested in that, so. Question?
I just have one easy question for you. Do you have the time? It's a pretty hard-working committee. A lot of work is involved in it. Do you have the time to give to it, Mr. Rosenquist?
Yeah. I seen the minutes of the last couple of meetings, and yeah, you could tell that they spent a lot of time. I have the time. I think I have enough time.
Okay.
I hope.
Okay. Just want to double check. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Well, good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig.
All right. Going to move on to Doug Alberg for the Conservation Commission. Doug, how are you? Need you to tell us your name, obviously. I just said it, but also your address, if you don't mind. Actually, you don't.
It's been riveting.
No. So you're interested in the Conservation Commission.
Oh.
Yes.
Tell my board why. What are you interested? Why?
Well, there's a few parts to it. It starts out philosophically, and that is, I believe that it's important to give back to the community. My wife and I just moved here officially in April, but although we've owned our house now for about a year and a half.
Yep.
And speaking with the agent, who I know from my business life, and the chairman, they both thought that this would be a good fit for me to get involved with. Prior to moving to Scituate, we lived in Connecticut for 10 years, but prior to that, we lived in Marshfield for 15. I owned a land surveying, civil engineering company, and we submitted a lot of plans to the town of Scituate, and we were responsible for a lot of the developments, so I've been in front of the board, the Conservation Commission, as well as the other boards, so I have a lot of experiences as far as that go, and what I hope to really bring to the Conservation Commission is technical expertise. This is what I've done for my whole entire career, and it's difficult sometimes to understand the plans that are being presented.
Yep.
Most plans at some level have been produced electronically now. There's not a whole lot of hand drafting going on, so there's electronic file that happens. There's all kinds of situations around the survey efforts themselves. We have a big datum change that's going to happen in 2020 that's going to cause a lot of confusion around elevations, because most of our, like the town flood zones and stuff like that, are determined on a 1929 datum, and it's going to be a really complicating issue that the commission's going to have to get involved with, and I'm really hoping that that's something I can really help out with. I'm still actively working. I'm full-time working, and I still do the same thing. I don't work in my own business now, so I have no conflicts as far as I'm not going to be presenting plans. I'm not doing the development, but I do understand the process from beginning to end of the development process. So, it's an easy thing to say that I care deeply about the environment. I do care about the environment. I also have an overarching concern that I've seen played out in a lot of different towns. Situate's one of them, but a lot of different towns with a lot of different developments, a lot of different developers, all who come at this thing from a different angle. I was listening or watching the news just over the last week, and I heard, I don't recall if it was a senator or just someone who was commenting, a spokesperson, but they called the EPA the enemy of business. So the contrary to that would mean that business is the enemy of the environment. And I just really feel like we're going to have to do a little better than having that kind of animosity that is largely due to sometimes lack of understanding. I think there's some opportunities on the commission to present some education to the public as well as the developers of why these regulations exist the way they do and what they are really trying to protect.
Yep.
A case in point, one of my own, couldn't understand why it's a problem throwing leaves out in the wetlands. The problem was explained to me, it's the pile of the leaves, and if they were distributed, because everyone says that, why can't you put your leaves out in the wetlands when there's already leaves out there? So little things like that feel like they're an overarching anvil of regulations that are being imposed upon people, and I think we can do a little bit better job of explaining and working with people to try to have it less of an adversarial kind of situation. From my own experience, I had developments, I didn't have a problem with the commissions or any of the boards in Scituate. I had problems with my clients. The developers wanting to maximize the properties when I was trying to find some sort of a balancing in here. It's tricky when you're asking a developer to leave maybe $1 million on the table by cutting out 4 lots. But it's the kind of thing that maybe we can spot and look and work for and avoid very aggressive developments that are almost in for spite. So that's my pitch.
Questions?
I'm sure you said you didn't have any conflict of interest now because you're not doing that type of work anymore, but have you worked with, like, are you going to run into a lot of people that you've done work with?
Yeah, I mean, a great deal of my clientele were the developers that you guys, the town sees. I subbed out to a lot of the engineers. I know probably most of the people that are going to come in front of that board. I talked to Frank here about that if I was going to have to recuse myself all the time, I'm not going to be effective on the board.
Right.
So he explained to me the process around that. I personally, I believe I'm not going to have a problem at all being objective. I'm not worried about that from a personal level. I am worried about that from an appearance level because I just know so many people. I'm worried about angering some of them, but I wouldn't have gone ahead and filled out the application if I didn't really think I could handle that, or if that wasn't something I was going to be able to work through. So I understand the process. I understand that that's maybe a concern, and I would understand too if that means that that's, like, it's not going to be a good fit. And, it means that there's very little I can do from a regulatory perspective in the town of Scituate if that's the case.
Yeah, I think, well, we certainly don't want you to be in an uncomfortable situation every time someone comes before you. If you develop something for him or develop something for her, and you said you worried about it a little bit, but is it really a worry, or do you think you'll have any problem really?
No. No, I'm one vote on a commission of, what is there, 7, I think?
Yeah, but you're also an expert in an area that others may not be.
Yeah, and I hope that, I hate to say it this way, but I hope that that's somewhat of a deterrent for some of the engineers when they submit plans. They know that there's somebody that can understand exactly what they're submitting. My hope, I don't know exactly how all the submittals are done now, but if they're done electronically, I can utilize those electronic files and do things like check areas and contour lines and things like that most of the other board members are probably going to struggle with.
No, there's no doubt that your skill set would be an asset to the committee. It's whether seeing all these friends of yours that you've worked with over the last 25 years are going to impact your comfortability of being on the committee.
It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It does not. I worry more about it from, are they going to have an issue with it and think that they see me on the board and that they're going to have an easier time than they really do. And then they'll have to just learn that, I'm there in a professional manner and that I've got a job to do, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Thanks. If anyone had a conflict, I don't think Frank would be on as long as he has. I mean, there isn't anyone in town that he doesn't know, but you balance it. You're up there in a position that you're the one that will be able to tell yourself if you have a conflict or not someone else, or they may not appear. A lot of us, we know everyone in town practically, and sometimes we have to make tough decisions. But like Tony said, with the experience that you have, I think you'd be a great asset to the Concom. That's a huge commitment, and I don't think anyone's asked that. Frank, once or twice a week, and you guys go till all hours of the night.
We don't meet nearly as long as you do. We start a little earlier and we try to get out of there by 9 o'clock.
Twice a month, I think.
Twice a month. You can do that? You make
Yeah,
that
well,
commitment?
because they picked Mondays, that's going to work. I don't usually travel on Mondays, so, I would like to jump all in and give it a real good try.
Right.
It's a 3-year commitment, I understand that.
Any other questions?
No, I think you'd be a great asset to the conservation. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you.
No, great.
No, I think
Doug,
he's
thank
great.
you.
Thank
We'll
you.
get to voting a little bit later. Before we move off the committee candidates, to Tracy, Tolner, Kelly? All right, great. Come on, we're just going to go back to the Scituate Cultural Council. You're interested in getting on.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Yeah.
I didn't know your middle name before.
So I've lived in town for over 30 years, and I worked for IBM for about 20 years, and then I worked part-time when I was raising the kids, and for the last 10 years, I've been the assistant director at the James Library and Center for the Arts in Norwell. And so I really wanted I've had a few things change, so I have some time now, and it's time to start giving back to town and for all the things that the town does for all of us. So I thought the Cultural Committee would be a good place to start, given my experience utilizing, we've actually been a beneficiary, I should say, of some Scituate Cultural Council monies in the past. We provide programming for kids all the way up through senior citizens, et cetera, and that's given me the ability to understand what some of the programmings are out there, what's good for different age groups, with a focus on trying to do programs that are free to people. So I'd like to think I can bring my expertise in having run the programming at the James for 10-plus years. I have exposure to a lot of different opportunities. I'd like to think that I also might be able to find some other sources of potential funding for programs within the town of Scituate through different grants that we go out for as a nonprofit that might also be applicable to town-run programs. But I feel very strongly that the arts, whether it's listening to someone play a piano, whether it's taking a piano lesson, listening to an author talk, or any of the different types of lectures we have, are really critical for all ages. There's nothing more exciting to see, quite frankly, an elderly person sit down and get lost in the music, or a kid get turned on by something that they hear at one of our lectures or one of the programs, and the great programs that Scituate has run and funded through the Cultural Council. You know, we're really lucky in Massachusetts to have such an extensive network of LCCs, so I think it's really exciting.
Tony?
She wrapped it up. Any question I could have?
I've known Tracy a long time. I think she'd be an excellent asset. Very organized and very committed when she puts her mind to things.
Well, we're going to vote on it shortly, and I think your odds are
Tracy
getting on
covered
it pretty much 100%. So not to say anything, but, you know, not prejudging anything. but-
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, and thank you, actually, for all the stuff you do for the town, because that's thankful.
Appreciate it.
for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so what I'm going to suggest to the board is, why don't we take a few other, then we come back and then vote, unless, if that makes it easier. I know it's supposed to be later on, but like, think about what you want, and then what we'll do is, we'll just move over to the 810 FY18 end of the year budget transfers with Nancy Holt. Nancy, come on up. Yep.
All right, so wait a minute.
Suppose we can get through this, right?
Such a pleasant experience.
So,
I do apologize to the board that you are just seeing these for the first time tonight. I wanted to get all of the information that I could before I brought these before you. The most of what you have for your review and consideration relates to payroll, and if it's all right with you, I'll just go down the list. So we have two issues going on in payroll. One of them is persons that have left the employee of the town who were due some type of a payout of their accrued time, and those had to be covered and they caused shortfalls. And then we have the exact opposite, is we have vacancies that couldn't be filled that also caused problems with some of the overtime accounts. So vacancies helped us, and they also hurt us, as you'll see as we go through. So the first one is a request for a transfer from the Board of Selectmen Town Administrator regular salaries line for $8,240, and it's to come from the Board of Selectmen Town Administrator litigation line. So in this case, this is covering a shortfall from the transition of the town administrators, and it's coming from expense savings within the same budget, which is what we tried to do when at all possible for all of these. The next one is the assessor's regular salary line, which has a shortfall of $15,572. It would be covered from the town accountant's salary line. The reason for the shortfall was the retirement in the office of a long-term department head, and that savings is coming from the HR director vacancy, which we didn't fill for a number of months. The next would be the treasurer collector's regular salary line for $3,727, coming from the treasurer collector ambulance billing expense line. Again, this was a retirement that occurred late in the fiscal year in this office. They have recouped as much as they can, and the balance would be coming from a savings in their expense lines. The next is the conservation regular salaries for $20,696, coming from planning board regular salaries. Again, we had a late term retirement in that office, and the savings, they're not able to cover that retirement buyout, and the savings in the planning board office are from the budget that was created with having a department head and a regular clerical person at max step, and then there was a change in those departments with a retirement and people moving along, so we had quite a bit of savings in salary lines to offset that. So we knew that we would be having to make the shift somewhere down the line. The next is inspections regular salaries for $7,920, again covered by planning board regular salaries. We did hire our Director of Community Development and Planning earlier than we expected to when we budgeted for it. We knew we were going to have the savings in the planning board because of that retirement. So that's why that was done, but we waited to see how much we could recoup through that budget as we went through the year, because this is also the budget that pays for inspections, and we estimate the number of inspections. The next, we get to our other problem, which is overtime. So this is in public safety communications. As you may recall, this is the first year for this budget, so we were a little unsure as to how it was going to play out. Their overtime was a problem for them, and actually in March, they have 3 sources of overtime. They have the overtime for their public safety dispatch communication specialists, but they also, if a police officer or permanent intermittent officer covers for a dispatch shift, or if a firefighter covers for a communication shift, those departments then back charge the Public Communication Safety Department's overtime account. And she just got back charged one too many times. So in March, I cut them both off. So both police and fire had to deal with those dispatch coverings under their own budget, which created problems for them. The other problem that I think you're aware of, is we have not had a full complement of communication specialists since we went into the new building. They have been trying, but for almost at this point, for every 2 they hire, 1 decides it's not what they want to do. So they are still not at a full complement. Currently, I think we have all the full-timers they need, but we don't have the part-timers they need. So hopefully, as we go through this second year with this budget, we can ferret out where the problems are going to be and deal with them. Their heavy reliance on overtime to fill these shifts is what caused them to go over. So to deal with it, there's $973 coming from planning board regular salaries. Thank God for the planning board. And the balance is coming from the facilities department regular salaries for $12,000, $973 from planning board, $12,000 from facilities. Facilities had the funds that they could donate to this cause because they had a budgeted part-time position that they did not fill until about 2 months ago. So they had it budgeted for the entire year and didn't fill it till later, and that's the part-time custodian they have up at Gates, Old Gates.
So
And
Nancy,
all
all
the
of these facilities, those are salaries, not?
Salaries.
Okay.
Just salaries. And all of the departments that are involved, the ones who had shortfalls and those who gave money, have been contacted, except for Don Knapp, because 3 times I tried to find Don Knapp today and I couldn't find him, so I'll make it good with Don later on. Moving on, we have...
Nancy, what's the difference between the 2 lines? The 973 is for what?
The nines, I just didn't have enough in the facilities' regular salaries to cover her shortfall completely, so I needed another $973. So planning board still had some left over, $7,000. So I tapped them for another $973, or I
But
proposed
both
that
the
we
same situation with the overtime because
Yeah.
we didn't have positions filled?
had to go to more than one budget to resolve that shortfall. And all of the following ones are the same thing. It's one shortfall, but it's because of the size of it, it can't be resolved with just one transfer. Facilities purchase of services, there was a request for $13,000 to be transferred from facilities public buildings. Now, what we could have done is to reclassify these expenses down into public buildings, but we want to keep the budgets as clean as possible so that we can actually see where the expenditures are. And in the case of facilities, alone, Old Gates, since we took it over, so about 9 months' worth of utility costs has been over $80,000. That's not the driver of this particular transfer, but just to give you an idea of what that building is coming to cost us for utilities. While I have you, wanted to impart it to you. The main driver for him is him being Kevin Kelly, our facilities director, is Kevin gets the unenviable position of when there's a bill relating to a building and it's not in anyone else's budget, that's facilities. So one of his big problems right now is the internet and all the other telephone lines and data communication lines at the public safety complex. Well, that building's shared by 2 departments. How do you split up all those lines? Well, facilities pays them. So he picked up 4 Comcast bills, which he wasn't planning on picking up. So that's part of where one of his lines is over. We had money built into contingency in the public buildings in case of these things, but that's just where some of the drivers are.
How much were those bills?
Those bills run several $100s a month, and he's picked up an entire year's worth of them.
Okay.
Comcast go for anywhere from $74.99 to $200
But this is $33,000.
Well, it's $13,000 for purchase of services, and that's not the only, these are some of the drivers. The other drivers are his repair budget. His repair budget is over. So what he puts into his normal 520 for regular repairs was not sufficient, and he does need assistance to cover those costs, and he doesn't have all of his costs in. So this is a little bit, probably giving him like a $5,000 leeway. He's about $7,000 over in those lines right now. And again, we could have paid it out of public buildings, but it doesn't help us to budget for our future and give the detail that we want if we don't know that what's driving the cost there.
So that's the real thing. If he's $7,000 over and you gave him a cushion of $5,000, that's 12 of the 13?
Yeah. And when this budget comes before you next year, I want you to see that last year, we budgeted $12,000, we actually spent $18,000. It's not realistic to budget $12,000 again. It needs to come, we need to adjust the budget, and it needs to come from somewhere else, and that may be just reducing public buildings. At some point, we want to reduce that line, so we just have specific projects in it.
Does he see like monthly reports that shows where he?
Yeah, if you remember the facilities budget, it's got an enormous number of lines, and we spend a lot of time trying to put things where they belong. And that's something that I've talked to Kevin about, and I've talked to the town administrator about, is, how we get a better accounting by building of what each building is costing us. And we created more accounts, but then that means somebody's got to split those bills up to those accounts and make sure that they monitor them and make sure they're actually going to those right accounts. So we have cleaning supplies, we have electricity, we have gas, and that's fine-tuning that. Can't say it's perfect yet, but it's getting better. And that way we know what our cost centers are costing us, which is the only way to really control this budget and have a better understanding of which buildings are working, which buildings aren't. The same thing with materials and supplies. Kevin has the director of facilities has the fuel and lubricants for the entire town. It's combined under his budget. And with the gas and diesel prices having inched up a little bit, that line did go over. So it has nothing specifically to do with what facilities did. It's just the overall line. That was about $6,000 over. And then the balance of it, again, we're giving him about a $5,000 to $6,000 cushion in here because he's got bills that haven't come in that he knows about. Building supplies, so with the repairs, the goods that he bought to make the repairs in the line above, which went over, he has a shortfall in the actual materials, and also his cleaning supplies are over, and some of that is for the new buildings. He just didn't estimate what he thought he would need and what he actually needs don't really match. So we did see an overage in the cleaning supplies as well.
Is that including the school buildings as well?
Just town buildings.
Just the library and PSC, okay.
Yeah, and in the other buildings, like the whole town hall complex, he buys all the cleaning supplies for that, because he controls the custodians. Again, trying to get back down to cost centers so we have a real idea of what's being spent in each building to make sure that it's reasonable for that building based on what's coming in.
Nancy, what vehicles would he be responsible for gasoline and fuels?
He has the entire fuel and lubricants budget under him, so it's for...
school buses, though?
No, school buses come out of the transportation budget, and the enterprise accounts pay for their fuels and lubricants, but everything else...
Police, fire?
Right.
Yeah. It's they lost it out of their budget and all came to his, so it's all in one spot. Because what happens is the good years, people have honey hole for budget money, and the bad years, they're scramble. So we put that all in one place. This year, it's a bad year for facilities, so he's got to cover. And again, as you can see from the projected available budget, he still, after those two transfers from the public facilities line, he still has $79,000 in the public facilities line. And just unfortunately for Kevin, there's just so much going on. There's only so much he can bite off and work on that he has lots of plans, but unfortunately he can only do so much. Moving on to the police overtime. Police has an overtime shortfall, but normally the police manage their overtime because it's caused by vacancies. They haven't had a full complement. They're just about at a full complement, I think, right now. I think they even got their PIs up to their full complement. But they've been managing their overtime over the last several years because of those vacancies. In this particular year, they had multiple retirements that were high-ticket retirements, and they could not make up the money. They occurred about mid-year. They've been making up as much as possible, and they've made up at least 50% of it, but they couldn't cover all of it. So that's what's really driving it. Normally, they would be able to cover this shortfall themselves within their existing lines, but they just don't have enough flexibility because of those retirements. And that's why this one is, got that particular
How much
explanation.
were the payoffs for the retirements?
Over $100,000.
Over 100?
Yeah. One was expected, one was not.
Say that again?
One was potentially expected, one was not. And that, I don't want to give anyone the idea that's a normal payout. It's not, but when you have people that have decades of service, there are things that might have been bargained out that these people would still be grandfathered in for. So the funding sources for this particular amount, which is $67,000 overall, is the police department is giving back $10,000 out of their purchase of services line items. The library had $50,000 left over from unfilled positions. They had quite a bit. We reduced it in the fiscal 19 budget for part-time positions and like on-call positions that they never filled. And Jessie gave her support of that. And then $7,000 is coming from the HR director vacancy that I have in my office. So that leads us to the fire overtime, which you were familiar with. Chief Murphy and I and the town administrator have met several times and discussed his overtime budget. And I think you're very much aware of the issues that are going on in the fire department, that there are a number of vacancies that they've been unable to fill. They have some long-term illnesses, and they have some long-term injured on duties, and they've had people in the academy as well. So right now, it takes about 9 to 10 months once they hire someone to get them on the floor, because they have to go through the academy. I did talk to the chief today. He wanted me to update you that he does have 2 new hires. One will be in the September academy, one will probably be in the October academy. And then they're pulling another list, hopefully to get another person. And then in October, they hope to get a 4th person off that list. So it's a never-ending battle to try to just fill those vacancies, let alone if anything develops with the people that are currently injured on duty or have long-term illnesses, that whether they come back or whether they decide to leave because they can't come back.
You said something about bonuses? What did you say?
Long-term illnesses.
Illnesses.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
But I'm sure the chief would fully support bonuses. Yeah.
Jim, can I ask a question? Jim, are we losing many to out of town? They transfer, Nancy didn't mention any, but it just jumped in my mind.
We had
No, 2 transfers, one left to become a doctor. So it's not.
It's noble.
People out of departments.
Okay, all right.
And we did have 2 voluntary, that one and then one that left for a career change.
Now, Nancy, these projected available budget numbers?
Yes.
This is for FY '19?
18. This is all 18. I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier. The overall funding for this is $57,000. The funding for it, again, the fire department is giving back $6,000 of its materials and supply budget. Public facilities, the public buildings line item, which still has $79,000 in it, would forfeit $30,000. And then veteran subsistence, this is benefits that didn't pay out, whether because people went on to federal assistance, someone passed away. This is the one Don and I have not been able to cross paths with. He's got $25,000 left. I would propose to use 21 for this, and then we would encumber the balance for any medical expenses that got submitted to us. And last year, we encumbered $5,000, and what was submitted to us was about $70. Don does really well with educating the people that are out there currently who are receiving assistance, that if they have any medical expenses, so they can bring them in before we close off for the fiscal year to make sure that we get them to them in a timely manner. So that's the general fund, which is usually more than what we normally have, and I apologize for that. Water enterprise, we have one issue with the water enterprise. Due to a number of vacancies, happily, they have quite a bit of money left over in their regular salaries, about $118,000. The issue that we have is our water bill with the town of Marshfield. It is we still need $85,000 to meet that bill. And that is because of the water main breaks in Hummerock. Our second half bill was astronomical. We have filed for an abatement with the town of Marshfield. We have appeared before the town of Marshfield Board of Public Works twice. They're going to consider it with their council, and we'll be appearing before them again at a future date. They've given us an extension to pay the bill until August 31st. But again, this was water that was released. We did provide proof that we fixed the breaks, but this was the break at Fourth Cliff that happened in the March storm, And then there were other breaks that happened in the January storm. So it's an ongoing issue, but it was, the amount of the abatement that were requested was the difference between last year's water usage at this time for one particular bill and this year's water usage. So it's quite significant.
What's the total bill?
The total bill is well over $300,000 for the year. It's closer to
For the
four.
what? For how, what time period? The year? Okay.
So,
I just didn't hear.
let me just finish. So, when I was on advisory about 15 years ago, Marshfield changed us from residential use to commercial use, which increased our bill over twofold. I don't, have we ever gone back to them to try and get that? I mean, it is residential use.
So we have 6 other abatements on file with them that we talked about with them that we hadn't had a response to for fiscal 16 and fiscal 17 about rates. And the lack, we don't currently have an intermunicipal agreement that is in force. It expired years ago, and I think what you're referring to happened in 2006 when there was a 58% increase in the rate. There have been rate increases over the past several years to which we have not been told until we receive a bill, which doesn't allow us to budget for it. There was not a rate increase for fiscal 18. This was all usage-driven. But we do have those other 6 abatements pending, which they are also considering. We did, when we talked to them yesterday, it was at last night's meeting was in Marshfield, we did bring up to the fact that we found legislation from 1932, which says that the rate has to be mutually agreeable by both towns. So they're discussing that with their council, and they want to work with us to further discuss the bills.
Are there selectmen, the water commissioners?
No.
They have a water
They have a
commissioner.
separately elected Board of Public Works, which is who we met with. So we are, working with the town of Marshfield to address these issues.
Is any of this, since the water main was broken from the storms, reimbursable? This type of an expense from the FEMA?
We would submit for it, yes.
You have submitted for it?
It will be part of the submission. I believe it was in our initial assessment, yes.
It was? Okay.
We can, certainly, we can back up the damage. We would probably only be able to claim what happened on Fourth Cliff. It would just be quantifying that.
There you go. Was it north of the gate? That was my question. Sure?
The problem we have in Humrock is some of it, obviously like most houses, if the service or the meter is in the house, and underneath the house gets washed out, when the water's broken, it's unmetered. So, we lose a lot of those areas. We do have a very old infrastructure out there. We've been repairing a lot of breaks, and other breaks are popping up in other
But
locations.
there weren't any on the federal property. You sure of that?
Yeah, there's a huge
That
one.
broke off, right? Massive. Yeah.
The Air Force
Yeah,
property.
Yeah.
Why are we paying for it? It's not, why?
Because they don't, the town bills the other town, and they don't
We
bill.
bill them.
No.
Yeah.
He's talking about why are we repairing,
No, why are we repairing? So it happened on the federal property that we don't own. The
But
breaks
we,
did?
we send a bill for their water. The town of Scituate,
no, but he's saying why, in
Why are we
essence,
even-
why is the federal government not doing it? Why are we getting charged for it? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
As opposed to us, why are we paying for the
well,
federal
they're
government's?
just a user of ours. They, right?
Bill from us.
We bill them for water. They're not gonna get
So
their
it
own
just-
water.
Just should be a wash.
Well, the people in Humrock pay a
No, I'm not
lot.
talking about the residents.
No, I'm just saying, everyone in Humrock pays less than what we pay for the water from Marshfield.
Yeah, if they pay the Marshall rates, I'm.
No, they pay Scituate rates.
Situate rates.
All right.
Well, that's something I'd be very interested in learning more. I understand you were there, you folks, I'm not sure if Jim you were, but maybe Kevin was, for more, to have an update. I mean, having, how many abatements? 3 abatements? 4 abatements?
We have
Seems to be in
7
limbo.
abatements.
Yeah,
on-
it seems to be in limbo right now, and I think...
It's
the
moving
19
now.
The 1932 legislation, we should circle back and find out the effectiveness of it with the water commissioners, because if it's not, I think we need to be a little more proactive of making sure their council understands that it's got to be mutual, and if it hasn't been mutual, they can't unilaterally start charging us. I'd like to
And we have a draft of
push
the
that
new
issue, because this has
intermunicipal.
been an issue with me when they upped our rates to the commercial rate.
Yeah. In the last 15 years, the rates have increased significantly. In the last 5, they've been going up.
And I wasn't happy over the fact, I'm looking at you, Nancy, but for the public, I wasn't happy to find out 2 years ago when we had water needs, that Marshfield was not accommodating us with helping us in the event that we needed water. Cohasset was. It was very nice to see Cohasset step up. So We pay a lot, but they didn't want to help us out. Well, I'd like to get this issue resolved, but...
I hope to
All
report
right.
back to the
Just
board
one-
soon on that.
Yeah, one last question. So how, with all these old abatements, let's say they're favorably resolved for us, how does it reflect on our books? Is it a retroactive thing, or?
It would depend. If they give us a refund for the years that we've already paid, that would just be would be a receipt to the Water
Current year.
Enterprise Fund and would close out to Water Enterprise retained earnings. Same thing a similar thing if we don't end up having to pay the full $85,000,
Right.
then we would close out this transfer to Water Enterprise retained earnings. It probably wouldn't happen until fiscal 19 because we'll have to encumber these funds because we know we have that potential liability out there.
Okay, thank you.
So, you're looking for us for a motion?
Yes, after a very long-winded explanation, I apologize.
Would you like a motion, Chair? Sure. Move to transfer from the available general fund budget lines to other general fund budget lines amounts as presented this evening pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44B 33.
Motion by Ms. Canfield,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Curran. All in favor?
Aye.
Move to transfer from the available Water Enterprise regular salary budget line to the Water Enterprise Fund charges and assessments expense line in the amount of $85,017 pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, Section 33.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Canfield, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nancy, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks for the
And
explanation.
congratulations on the award. Well-deserved.
All right, going to move on now. We're going to move on to the discussion, vote, award a contract for architectural services for the new senior center. And Jim, are you it?
Very briefly, this was reviewed by the building committee. They reviewed the applicants for the architect's position. Bogman, Henry, and
Great.
Pike,
Then go back to
the
sleep.
highest rank, by a long margin. We met with them to go over what exactly we want to look at based upon the discussions at town meeting and some changes that came up after the RFP went out to make sure that they were looking at the correct thing. We want to make sure they looked at potentially part of the B wing or some of the B wing, if we could save part of that facade. The questions at town meeting, we can answer those questions if it's decided that the building is not savable. But also make sure they included the A wing and look at the gymnasium because we know the gymnasium is not
11.
handicap accessible. And if we do anything to the B wing, with very little handicap accessibility, there is just through the B wing, that has to be placed in the A wing. So the proposal that we're getting will incorporate all that. I didn't have it in time today, but it's a standard AIA document that most towns execute with their architects. I'm excited. I think they have a real grasp of what we're looking for. I know the seniors, the council on aging, this was your pick too, I believe, Dr. Price. So everybody seems to be on board that this is the architect to go forward and get this project underway.
Questions from the board?
The only thing I notice is there's a lot of things that aren't included in there, or in their letter. You know, we don't know how this is gonna turn out, you know, particularly with the gym and the A wing, and, so it's just a little, did they give you kind of an upside if, like, it's $700,000, $725,000?
We're gonna know very early on any use of the B wing at all. And we'll be able to make that decision very quickly and move on if it says, no, we can't use the B wing, it's gonna be astronomical to use the B wing. So we're gonna know that very early on, Tony. We'll be able to break out those costs too. We told them we need to break out any costs associated with the gym, any costs associated with the A wing and all that. So they're aware of that and that's gonna be all part of the scope.
So are there components of it that are included in this?
Yeah.
So there's a base analysis of those two buildings that's included in this number before they,
Before they go starting to design everything, yeah.
Yep.
And we've given them all the old plans that we have, we've given them all the old studies that we've done, some are old 2016, but all the documents that we have relative to that building, we've given to the architect, so he's not going to be starting from scratch.
how long do they think it'll take?
They're hoping to have kind of an idea in the B wing by the end of the summer, Dr. Price, correct me if I'm wrong, and then start having some of the community meetings about what we're looking for and all that, and get going in that way. We're hoping to have something for town meeting next year for actual funding. The question will be, depending upon the economy, do we want to go to bid before town meeting? The risk of that is if you don't have funding in hand and contractors are busy, they won't bid on it because they'll bid on a project over here that has funds in hand. So We're gonna have to see what the economy looks like, because maybe we'll go to town meeting with the estimate, get the funds, and we might get a better bid that way. Again, if the economy's really good, they're gonna bid on the contracts that have funding in hand instead of spending all the time bidding on contracts that aren't. But the goal is to be ready for the fall, spring town meeting.
One last question. We talked about putting parameters on the price for their design. Is that, I saw that there was somewhere in here, they quoted like a $9 or $10 million building.
Yeah, right now, it's in the range that we talked about. The question's gonna be, what's gonna happen with the B-wing? What's it gonna cost to fix? What's it gonna cost to take down? What's gonna happen with the A-wing?
So did we say we want them to construct a building for $10 million or less?
No, we wanted to come with a building, I think John described it best, Buick. Show us what we need, and then if that's too much, we'll have the value engineer back from that.
Okay, because I did see something in here.
Yeah, the architect's estimates and the OPM estimates are based upon the estimates for the cost of the building. That's how they come up with their design costs. But, you know, if the B-wing is just an asbestos bomb,
That's a game changer.
it's gonna be a lot more expensive to do anything to it. We're not planning on doing a lot with the gym. We know handicap accessibility. We told them to make sure the roof's not leaking and maybe limit.
So in here it says the overall cost is 8.5% of a $9 million projected construction cost.
Right,
they had that.
Soft cost, so that could be a $10 million project.
So in that, they're going to design something in that parameter.
Those are the wild cards out there.
Right. Great.
Good. Any other questions?
Just a couple of questions. In here, they've allocated $5,000 for engineering for the intersection, traffic and engineering, traffic and parking engineering.
Yep.
That just seemed really light to me, because that's a complicated section, area. I just didn't want them to, I want them to have the adequate funds to do that right.
I don't think it's as complicated as we think it is. because
Close
really,
an entrance, yeah.
The driveway that comes out of there, and I'm not an engineer, I mean, I know Kevin is, but the driveway that comes out of there has to not come out there.
Right.
That's gonna have to be moved down the street, tee off on the side street, you can make that one way or the other, but it's gonna have to come out of that intersection.
Okay.
So I don't think the engineering on that is a whole big deal, because you start doing counts on the side street, I can stay there and do a count on. I don't think the engineering for that is a huge item.
Okay, I was concerned about that. And the other thing I just want to be mindful throughout this process is to keep Senator O'Connor and Rep. Machino in the loop because of the allocation, the potential allocation of funding. If it's front and center, we have a better shot of getting that actually allocated. So, no, I think Tony covered most of it.
Any other questions from the board? Anybody from the audience?
I just have a comment before the audience, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I joined Jim in the meeting, and I thought Joel Bergman was very attentive, listened. I shared with him the vision of the board, be most cost-effective. We talked about all the different scenarios. So I feel very comfortable that he understands what our mission is. He had this written up, and then after our meeting, he went back and rewrote it. So I feel comfortable that he understands what we're trying to achieve here a little bit better than he did when he came in that morning. So I'm comfortable with it.
Gordon Price, 48 Manlock Road. I'm not speaking on behalf of the COA. COA obviously is very strongly behind the project. Just a couple of comments. I suspect we're going to be successful at town meeting. If we are ready for a town meeting in spring for a vote, I suspect we'll be successful at the ballot. I really feel confident about that. However, we do need to engage the support, emotional support and financial support of a lot of people. And without having something on paper to take out there to sell, it's pretty difficult. So my hope, and I've seen Joel's schedule outlined for the coming 6 or 8 or 9 months. And it looks like I think he does expect to have some sort of a rendering, if you want to call it that, within about 3 months. So if that comes, out in the fall, that will be a big help. There's a really dedicated group of people, some of them here tonight, who really want to get out there and start pounding the pavement. So we really feel like we can be successful helping to raise some funds, which will help to reduce the cost of the taxpayers. unless we have something to sell,
Right.
it's a little difficult to do, so I hope Joel will follow through that, and I'm sure he will. And the other comment is, I think in Joel's notes, there was something about the possibility of incorporating the veterans' services in, I forget what all the wings are called now, but in the A wing or B wing. A lot of senior centers are incorporating veteran services in the senior center. And there are funds available federally to do that. So that might be something that I hope Joel or somebody will look at, see whether that's a possibility to incorporate veteran services in the center.
My hope, Gordon, is that September, October, as soon as we start seeing some renderings, to get and have them come before the board to talk, to make sure we're going in the right direction and the board's comfortable as well as everybody else. And then once we begin to ratchet that down and begin to say, this is the plan, then that would be the ideal to begin to say, this is it. So we have the visual, and we can actually advocate for it. As far as the federal funding, I couldn't agree more. If there's an ability out there, we'll be searching for it. I'm really encouraged for the veterans as well as other entities like the Legion and people who are be there. I think it'd be interesting.
Just on the same vein, if we put Scituate TV in there, I don't know how much money we have left in that cable fund, but I bet some of that could be used to renovate the space as well.
We had $500,000 scheduled in this year's capital to be pulled out, so we know we have at least that much. If we do end up using some part of the 8B wing, then potentially we could dip into CPC.
I was just going to say, one of the
Same
things...
with, if we do some work in the gym, that could be CPC funds, so there's a whole bunch of different pots. And we talked to Joel, we talked to John Lemieux, OPM. They're very familiar with tracking those pots and making sure that they're only spent where they're supposed to be spent. So, and just to echo what Maura said, not only do I think Joel is well aware of what we're looking for, but I think John is too, our OPM. I think we got a good OPM on this project. It's going to be very helpful.
I'm sorry.
Well, if I can just jump in, I was just gonna, we all know the numbers, and we've all heard it and sat through the meetings, but for the general public, they don't. But one thing that does make me feel quite comfortable is sitting through the Public Buildings Commission for a number of years with John Lemieux from Vertex, who did our public safety building. He was very, very organized. This is a different project, for sure, and it's a lot of money. But I'm very comfortable with him on board. I thought he did a very good job. And I might have been looking through my documents, but can you just, $700 and some odd thousand, what are we getting from BH&A? Just, I see the list here, Jim, and I see it, but can you just, people watching TV?
This gets to a design of a senior center up to including bid documents, which is what we said at town meeting.
Okay, all right.
Just want to echo John, not only John Lemieux, but the building committee we have is outstanding. They've done a remarkable job on some of these projects. So they're a very good asset on a project like that have a good building committee.
No further questions? Well,
I just want to, Sandy Duffy, 804.
Sandy, sure.
President of FOST, I just want to agree with Gordon that our biggest thing is I want to try and get a group for fundraising, but until we have some picture, some drawing, something, we really can't do a lot. I mean, we'll still be having our regular fundraisers, but we really want to concentrate on going out to the whole town and doing fundraisers.
Yep.
So we've talked to Les Ball and, Gordon about how to organize it and stuff. So we're trying to work on that, but.
Once we get it, then it's going to be, because we don't want to necessarily prematurely go out and start advocating, because people are going to ask a lot of questions. We want those answers. So we'll have it there, and that way you'll be in a position to answer questions and have visuals. So we'll have that. My hope is, like I said, think September, we're in July, I suspect October. But as soon as we do, then we'll have a meeting, the very next meeting, to at least take a look at it and then see where we're going from there.
Just one other thing, John. Joel is very open to, and I think he's even has it in his schedule, to have a couple of public meetings in the fall to kind of, make this a very public forum and get ideas and hear what people have to say. So public safety building, yes,
the Performing Arts Center or the Center for Performing Arts, however you want to call it. And then I expect a meeting before us, so it'd be a great opportunity, at least give people opportunities to come.
Weigh in.
People to see it on TV, so they don't start saying, I didn't know about this, which I anticipate, but, all right, well, good.
Motion?
Motion, please.
Move toward the contract for architectural services for the new senior center in the amount of $724,900 to Bergman, Hendry, and Archetype.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by?
Second.
Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you very much,
Thanks, Jim.
Away we go.
All right, so we're going to move on to Kevin Cafferty. We're going to go on to DPW contracts. First one is a discussion vote, applied coastal contract amendment to a contract 15-FS-43, the amount of $78,737, which, if I'm not mistaken from reviewing the material, we neglected to include our portion that should be a part of the contract. No, if we tried to get it through, it didn't happen. They said finally.
We tried to make a lot of it up with in-kind service, or one of the things we were hoping for in the beginning. But we really need to close this out and get our construction drawings together, because we are applying for
This is the North Scituate Beach Renourishment that was awarded contract from May 2015.
2015.
And so right now, the scope of work is part of the RFP that we sent out. It's for $319,900. Unfortunately, what's been allocated has been shorted by the amount that the town's supposed to contribute, which is $78,737. And for us to be able to proceed with this beach nourishment in North Scituate with the engineering, the town needs to contribute this amount. And you're here before us to get the authorization for that amount?
To get the authorization, $29,000 of that is from CPC funds that we had previously, and the remainder is from the seawall account.
Okay, so CPC's contributing about $29,000, the remaining portion's coming from our seawall?
Correct.
Account that we have. Questions from the board?
But the engineering's all done. This is accounting?
Engineering, permitting, this is so that we can
Right.
get the construction drawings all put together and get everything completed. There's a little more work, but a majority of it is done.
Oh, okay.
How long will that take, Kevin?
I will talk to the engineer tomorrow. I'm hoping sooner, because one of the reasons we've applied for another grant, and if we got the grant, we would have some timelines to get the job done.
Move forward.
If we hit the job. So this will get us going on it, get it completed, and be ready to go if we do get the grant.
So in other words, hopefully in the next 12 months?
I'm hoping even sooner. I mean, if we found out we got the grant, we'd be able to jump on it right away and go forward with it.
Good.
You ready?
Motion?
Move to amend contract 15-FS-43, North Scituate Beach Nourishment Engineering and Permitting, in the amount of $78,737 to reflect the town's share of the work and finish the work in the original response to proposals.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by?
Second.
Ms.
Canfield.
Canfield, Jeepers, I won't Curran again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, 4-vote. Moving on, Kevin, to your next one, which is a vote, discussion vote of DPW water treatment plant chemical feed equipment. This is a replacement, and it's awarding a contract to Ty and Bond for $60,000.
So this is the engineering contract to replace, we have two large dosing tanks in the water treatment plant. Anybody who's gone for the tour has seen them. One is for the alum and one is for the potassium hypochlorite. And those are the large tanks, 1,000-gallon tanks that go into treating the raw water to take out material. The tanks they're well beyond their age limit. We had a slight leak, and we brought in a couple plumbers to repair them, and they said they didn't want to work on the plastic because it was too old. One of the things we have to do as part of the engineering is we actually have to take a wall out of the building and bring the tanks in for the water treatment plant, as well as provide a protection area and still be able to make water as we do that. So it's a tricky little project.
Questions?
What's the timing for when the actual work would be done?
We would probably do it either in the late fall or spring, when we wouldn't be as concerned about freezing.
I'm concerned about not doing it when the field's in use. Is that should we be concerned? I mean, if we're gonna be opening the baseball field behind it, dealing with chemical tanks and that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, what we'd probably
Is that-
do at that point, if need be, and that's one of the things we'd look in the engineering contract before we awarded it, is maybe we quarantine that whole area off and just put up some fence and protect the area to keep people
Okay.
out of it.
Right, if we just can keep that in mind when the timing, when it becomes timing.
So this is for two 1,000-gallon tanks?
The two big tanks in the...
I cannot remember, but they're 1,000, 2,000 gallon stainless steel, they plastic?
No, they're plastic.
They're gonna be plastic and the
There'll
new
be
ones?
another plastic in, we also have to meet some new DEP requirements with the dosing tanks and change the dosing system around a bit.
So this, any idea what the construction would be? This is for just the design and engineering?
This is just the design and engineering, and I think there's already some construction money approved. Top of my head, I can get it for you. but
Does
I don't
that seem a
have-
lot to you?
Well, we got 3 quotes from different firms. It didn't seem that bad.
Yeah, 60, 84,
60, 67, and 84.
How would you put the design for a tank?
I mean, it is quite a bit of work, too.
All right. Yeah,
And
no,
there's
I-
also, you know, it's not just the fact that you have to take out a wall, a structural
brick-
wall,
it's
and
a
do
brick
it.
build, yeah, right.
It's a block wall,
Right.
but you also have to conform with the DEP requirements and permitting and everything else on what you need to do and have interaction with them, which adds kind of another dimension to it. It's not like just building a building.
No, and no idea, maybe just adding on to the building, that wouldn't make sense?
No, because we have to get those other tanks out of there,
All right.
and you have to get the dosing systems in there.
All right.
Any other questions? Questions from the audience? No tanks? No?
It's exciting stuff.
So I'll entertain a motion at this moment.
Move that the Board of Selectmen award the contract for the design of the replacement of 2 bulk chemical storage tanks, chemical metering pumps, and all associated piping at the water treatment plant to Ting and Bond for Tang and Bond for $60,000.
Motion by Ms. Canfield, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Folks, it is almost 9 o'clock. We've been here for 2 hours. I know some of you have come. I'm just going to take a 5-minute recess for the board. I think one board member already took his recess, but for the rest of us, we're just going to, as well as our secretary.
I'll just handle the next item.
So let's get back here, give us about 7-8 minutes and get back. Welcome. We're now on the discussion vote, award a contract for engineering services design, of sports complex at the Scituate High School to activists for the amount of $404,469. Maura, good evening.
I'm Maura Glancy, Scituate resident, 61 Kenneth Road. I'm also the recreation director here in Scituate. To my right is Bill Louette, the athletic director of Scituate Public Schools. And everyone knows Kevin, my assistant director, Nick. I also have various people in the audience that work. I have my field coordinator, who just left her soccer game in the middle of it. It's tied, and she left anyway and came, and this is Tess Sweet. And a couple of commissioners. It's Jen McMillan, who's our chairman, and where are you, Dan? And Dan Fennelly. We've been working on fields since I can probably remember coming into recreation, even as a part-time employee. 12, 13 years ago, it's always been on the agenda for the Recreation Commission. Fields, 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 lack of this and that. And about 3 years ago, there was a subcommittee that was formed off the Rec Commission that really went into intensive study on what kind of land we have to build new fields on. And they looked into the water and the irrigation and the restrictions that we have. And where could we build something so we could make our fields playable for the people of Scituate. Our fields right now are so overused that some of them you can't even play on. They're a dust bowl, or they're just worn down so much and they don't have a chance to rest. So last April, we were awarded CPC funds to the tune of $418,900 to go out and do engineering construction documents. We went out to 3 proposals, and we went out for a proposal and we got 3 of them.
3 bids. Yep.
So we put an RFP together and went over all the
Yeah, worked with
specifications of what we were looking for and what the town was looking for and the needs are. and approached 3 different design firms that specialize in field designs.
And then we
just to
formed a committee
look at it.
and ranked them after we looked over the booklets and what they proposed, and it was almost unanimously, I can say everybody at the, who voted, there was 5 of us that voted, really liked this one. They came close between 2, and nobody really liked the third. I can only speak for what I voted for. I voted for the activists, a bit because of their sense of detail and how much they went into detail more than anybody else. I was impressed with them. I also found out through my playground that we built not too long ago in North Scituate that this person gave advice to my landscape architect there. I didn't know that at the time. I still never had met the man, but he lived in town. And everybody would ask me, who is this? I mean, do you know this man? Do you know this man? No, I don't know who he is. We keep stopping into me, making suggestions, but he was from another firm, but he was concerned about and wanted to help out as much as he could. And he didn't want anyone to know he was helping, just giving little tidbits of advice. She also hired their firm to do some soil sampling over in North Scituate when it was first being built, and I worked a little bit with parts of their firm, and they were terrific. I was extremely impressed with how their work ethic was. And later, when we went out to proposals, I met the man. He came up. His name is Mark Novak. He is a town resident, and I was impressed right away by him. So that's why I voted for him, because I was impressed to the detail that he went into compared to the other 2. You can all express how you did, but that's what I came up with. And everybody voted 4-1 in favor of activists. I do
So
have to
with the-
say that they were the highest bidder.
So we've seen it just for the purposes of TV and people are watching. What exactly are we voting on? What is it that they're proposing to do, you know?
So right now, up at the, it all started with the track and turf. We were looking into replacing the turf, and it just needed the carpet replacement, and when we went out for an engineering just to see what was going on there, we found out that the track was a little off kilter, and it needed to be more level. And from there, it went, why don't we... What?
Can I step in?
Wait a second.
Go ahead, Fish.
Is this what you want to write?
Yeah, the 3 multi-purpose fields.
Oh, so getting down to it, we're going to replace, it would be the track and the turf, the 3 multi-purpose fields, which would be the baseball field, would be a turf field. There'd be a softball field also there. And when they're in off-season, there would be 3 multi-purpose fields up there. During season, the softball and baseball would have that as what they would use. It would eliminate the Title IX issue that Bill talked about. And should we read any more than that?
Right now, there's only the baseball field, two baseball fields. In the fall, that's only used for football. So, but in the fall, with this plan, there would be 3 fields there.
So you could use it for multi-purposes, whether it's for football, soccer,
Lacrosse.
lacrosse if need be.
Field hockey?
You got it.
You got it. Field hockey, I'm sorry, that's exactly. And the other thing, no, I'm sorry, I should have thought of that, because right now our field hockey is kind of in limbo. Plus, the other thing is, are we going to fix the backwards track?
Yes.
I mention that because, you know, I realized this school committee, when they did it back in 2000, one of the members is still on it, they should have fixed it back then, and I was brought to my attention, actually, and I'm like, I can't believe that they let it sit there for 18 years when they should have fixed the track in the first place, when they knew it was wrong. So now we'll have a proper track, the right direction. I'm glad about that.
And the proper lanes.
Yes.
So more, just to be clear, the $404,000 is for the design, engineering, and all the paperwork stuff needed for somebody to come and actually do the building, is that correct?
Yes.
Right, for the track and the 3 fields.
Yeah, Kevin's right. I should have been reading this. It includes 3 multi-purpose fields, football, soccer, lacrosse, and field hockey, which includes provisions for a varsity baseball field and a varsity softball field. The second part of the complex would encompass a football multi-use field, track, and field facility. The design shall include all permitting, survey work, site work, design, bleacher design, bathroom design, press box design, lighting design as required.
What will be lit? All fields?
Well, the baseball field's already lit.
So we're gonna do the softball field will be lit and everything in between the
Well,
two?
if baseball's lit, softball has to be, yes.
Now, will the press box and that area with the bathrooms or all, or proposed bathrooms in that area?
Yes.
Yes.
As a part of this also? Okay.
Yes.
And handicap accessibility, I assume, to to all fields, I would assume?
Correct.
As well as the football field?
Yes, that's all included.
And they'll design lighting for all the fields, and then, we can look at the cost estimates and pick and choose what we really need.
Bill, remember earlier in the plans, we were talking about stuff on the other side, on the hill going up to Cushing?
Yes.
None of that is in this?
No.
And nothing behind the shot put, whatever it is, behind the further end zone?
Correct.
That area back there is still not touched? Yeah.
Correct. That is
Okay.
not included in these plans.
So I noticed in the field matrix, and it talks about priorities, high priority, mid, and low. One of the things I'm curious is, all for the theory of designing the multi-athletic / turf field, you're going to need a short-term solution for replacement of the JV field to some degree. I
Right.
think that would be a higher priority, because otherwise I don't know where you'd be playing JV baseball.
So right now, I only did half of Central Field.
Okay.
And I made the softball field for the girls, the town made the softball field for the girls, and put dugouts in, and then now have
Beautiful.
like a
That's
nice
nice.
little field over there. It's still off campus, but that was supposed to be in the interim, so I've stopped even any plans going for the other side of the field,
Okay.
thinking that maybe the JV field could pop in there. I have there's 139,000 the CPC awarded me a couple years ago for that, and that would probably have to be reallocated. Dan's a liaison to the CPC, he knows better than that. We've been discussing this with CPC, that we could reallocate that to make it into a JV baseball field.
One thing to keep in
It would be
mind.
rescinded and then reallocated
Right.
to a new project.
One thing to keep in mind is, and I'm not sure, depending what happens at Gates, old Gates, there's the existing baseball field there.
Mhm.
And it originally was a baseball field.
Right.
So it's there, it's the flattest field, so who knows, maybe as a interim that could be there. Depends on what happens, as you could tell earlier, what's going to happen in that area. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, that's a
that could be
good
cost
option.
savings potentially too. Because the field's there, you just have to plow the infield and you can go from there maybe, I don't know.
That field drains the best in town, by the way. It's a great field.
Yeah, the only, go ahead.
No, please, finish up.
No, I defer to you, Madam Vice Chair.
I give you my time, isn't that what they say in the Senate?
All right, all
Here's
right.
my time.
So, this is just for the high school piece. You have three different phases, right, of this overall project. So this 404 is just for the design and construction documents, if you will, for the high school piece, correct?
Correct.
Has the school committee approved this yet?
I brought it up to the school committee,
Mhm.
and they mentioned that it was a town field, but they are in support of it. And that was when I introduced the plans at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
As to what we were gonna move forward and try and.
All right, so they know about this.
It wasn't a vote, but they know what's going on, yes.
Okay, good.
All right.
They know.
And I understand that, and I think that's one of the challenges moving forward. I just want to make sure that as we move forward, that we lay out not only a plan, okay, we've got the $418,000 for this phase engineered. How are we going to pay for the construction? What's the timing? When's the next phase coming for engineering? And before that, because with looking through the plan, we're looking right at Hatherley, Wampatuck, Cushing. School committee needs to tell us what they're doing with those buildings first. So it all has to align, right? So I'm thrilled that we're moving forward on this piece, but I just want to make sure that we're all mindful as we move forward to this, that we really need to map this out, using Nancy, Jim, and just the financial planning of it as well. Because I can't tell you, I don't want to spend $500,000 designing this, and we don't get to the point where we can't build it. We don't know how we're going to pay for how we're going to build it. So I'm tired of looking at this for 20 years. I know we all are. So I just want to make sure that we all do our due diligence to make sure it keeps moving forward and we get in front of those roadblocks that might potentially come at us. So,
And to Tony and Mara's point, the only question I'd have, and it proved, I think it's a dead issue, Jim would be able to correct me, is the well. Wasn't that behind the end zone where Tony was talking about earlier, and that proved not sufficient water, nor,
Haven't done
so
it.
that's, right, so that's off the table.
It was mentioned before that possible storage tanks underneath turf areas that could possibly water up at Cushing and that backfield. So that is a possibility that was brought up in the interview process.
Right.
I'm surprised that there isn't like another location, because there's all wetlands. As soon as you're at the end of the football field, as you go in, heading northerly towards the area, towards Cushing, that's all wetlands in that area. Can't imagine that they can't get...
The other issue, though, even with a well, the problem we have is, when do you grow grass? Spring and the fall. One of our fields get the most use, spring and the fall. So that's why you're almost forced into having turf, because you can't take care of the fields. We can't build enough fields where we can rotate fields in and out of use. So, you know, I learned this through my NOLA project. A good grass field, well-maintained, well-watered, 200-plus uses a year. A good turf field, 600-plus uses a year. So each turf field gets the equivalent use of 3 full-size grass fields. We don't have the water to put on the fields, even if we could, and when we have to water them is the time when we're on them. So you almost by default, if you want to provide these type of facilities, you got to go with the turf.
One other observation I have with that, and Bill showed me it, it's the area east of Cushing, which is town-owned land. It's up gradient to the football field, but it's relatively flat for the most part once you get up gradient. To me, to your point, depending on, we don't know what's going on with the schools, that's a large area that ultimately could probably be grassed in the future. It's not high priority, but it could be, and that could solve a lot of issues short-term as opposed to waiting and waiting and waiting, deciding, are they keeping Cushing, are they going to get rid of Hadley, or what are they going to, the school committee's going to do. But for the short term, this looks like a great plan. It really does, to at least address the issues for the wear and tear and the usage for all these, not just the school, rec department, as well as some of these other club teams and people who use it. John?
Just one other question. As the contract we awarded earlier, any idea what percentage is this 10% of the, I'm not going to hold you to it.
Good question.
10% of construction cost, is it 5%? Have you ever hear those percentages from?
I've heard them.
From the likes of these
I
people?
think it's a little less than 10.
Okay.
I'd say between 5 and 10 based on
Yeah.
Okay.
how would you do it.
When I had my field study done, they gave me a little idea of how much that would be, but I'm not going to.
No, and I wouldn't hold you to it. I have no, you could have said 3 to me, and I would have believed you. I just don't know, right?
It's a $4 or $5 million project.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at. You know, just an idea, you know, just, right.
And like Maura said, and everyone reiterated, we can't spend $500,000 on plans and put them on the shelf again. So, but town meeting voted for this, so we're hoping that they're gonna stick to it and build what needs to be built. It's gonna get used, and it's gonna get used a lot more by town use than school use. You know, probably 4 to 1, I would guess, where all the the town programs are gonna use it before, more than the football field and the football team and the lacrosse team and the field hockey team.
This also gives us the ability to get off the fields earlier in order for the towns to use them.
Right.
One last question I have is, given what we're doing with Old Gates, the tennis courts, is there a consideration of adding another tennis court at the high school? Only because you're only allowed to have 5, well, not allowed, you have to have a minimum of 5. If you take one of those courts away, you don't have
matches.
The matches, you can't play tennis, right? So that's something I think really should be a consideration, because we don't know what's going to happen with the tennis courts. And I think that's something that you should really factor in, I think, quickly. It's a possibility, that's all.
We had 2 companies come in to discuss, we had a couple questions for both of them, and that did come up, about the high school ones, because there's 4 up there, and it's right there.
Right next to it.
Right next to it. And it wasn't in the proposal to begin with. It popped up late. But
I think you should
one
consider it.
indicated that, and after this one indicated that he would look into maybe incorporating it.
Because I just
He
would hate
didn't
to
promise,
go,
but he did say that, and he understands
I'd
it.
hate to go to town meeting and start asking for all this money, and then
Yes.
some people get up and say, well, jeepers, now we're no longer compliant with MIAA, because you only have 4 because you're tearing down. I mean, that could be a real nightmare, that's all, so.
I think what's going to help with this project is that the field and track are so bad that they really have to blow them up. So it's like they have a blank canvas.
Oh,
It's
good.
not like they're replacing it.
Yeah.
They have to blow it all up.
Yeah,
Except for the
a lot of
flag.
dirt
Keep the
moving.
flag.
Exactly.
Flag
Except for the
stays.
flag. So I think
Yes,
that helps
don't.
it because it can be moved, or, I mean, they're going to come up with plans
Right.
that they think is best where we can fit the most in the areas. So I think that's really good.
And we pushed that flag over as far as we could in the corner, and knowing that this could be so that won't be.
And the donor loves it, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a very good man.
So this bid is the highest.
This was the highest out of the 3, yes.
So am I correct in saying that the very lowest one was the one that all of you
Did not like.
did not like? So the other one was I think this was 404, the other one was like 375?
It was
50.
350?
Yeah.
I don't have the...
Yep.
Roughly.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
That one was
the
the
delta between those two, because the other one was under 200, I think.
288.
266.
Oh.
60s, yep.
352, 760, 266, 960, 404, 469.
So the delta was only 50,000 between the two
Yes.
that you were considering. And who else was on the committee?
Let's see, it was Nick, Kevin, myself, and Tess, Bill.
So, I mean, Nick, what did you think about, why did you like this one or the other one more?
We met with both groups, and I basically just felt more comfortable with Mark Novak and Activitas, and seeing how he's from Scituate. I mean, I just feel like it's a good idea for us to invest in somebody that's going to be going to these fields with his kids. He knows people that are going to be going to the field with their kids, and yeah, I think it's a good investment on our part to invest in someone that's going to invest in us the most.
Bill, did you have anything? Who liked the other one? Always
All of them worked together for 15-plus years, and it seems like that experience of them working together, they seem real close, and the proposal they put together was very professional. It was very detailed. I think it was detailed to what we were looking at. During the interview process, he brought up that the drawings that they're going to give us are very detailed drawings that's going to reduce the amount of change orders. They give drawings, they do more drawings than most companies, and
Have they done anything local?
they have, they've done Harvard, Gillette, BC, Springfield, MIT, RG, Xaverian, Weymouth, BC High, Carver, Dedham. I mean, the list that they gave us was over
Impressive.
160 fields and tracks, where we were looking at the other companies, and they had a list of like, about 15 schools in the area. But they gave us everything, They're not hiding everything, anything at all. They want us to know what they do. They want us to go check it out. And I think, I'm looking at the schools that they worked on. Lexington, they worked on in 2002 and came back in 13 years and used them again in 2015. I mean, that says something. You have Harvard that had over 8 fields. I mean, you're talking about a college, but I understand they're at the top level, but I don't want to sit there and for us to I'd like us to be at that top level. There's nothing wrong with us shooting that high also, even though we're a high school. They worked at BC in 2005, 2012, 2017. Weymouth, they did the high school in 2014. The town comes back and uses them in 2017. So the towns continue to go back to them because they do a great job. So I feel, looking at that, I was very impressed with the presentation they gave and the people that worked there. And I know Mr. Novak being in town, he's going to be at that field every day, and he's going to have all eyes on him. And he's going to do a good job because he's going to hear it from us.
Karen?
So Kevin, was your reservation the cost differential?
I thought the
top two contractors or engineering firms could have done it without a problem, and I just like pocketing the $50,000.
Wow. Okay. Did I read that that the design for the facilities is prefab? I know I looked at it a while ago.
I think you did. I think you saw that come in as prefab, coming in for the bathroom facility, you mean?
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But that doesn't really affect the engineering, that's in the design, the actual, okay.
The attention to detail that I noticed between this and the other two, it was such a high step to me that I thought, if it was me and buying it for my family, I would go with that.
One more observation.
Question?
I'm looking at, you said there were 5 decision makers. We're all staff, right? Did the commission have any weigh in? The Recreation Commission?
No, I'm sorry, they
And all you
didn't.
guys?
They've supported it. Dan did all the
Well, I know he
research.
did all the pre-work and the research, but I just mean, as far as, was this all presented to your commission
Well, I only
too,
had
as far as their
3 commissioners for a while.
evaluation?
Yeah, I didn't have a commissioner on there, no. It was
I'm
during
sorry,
the
what?
day, and I didn't have a commissioner come in, no.
All right. I think in the next phase, we're here trying to get really good people to work on the commission, and I think we need to make sure that we're empowering them too to be a part of the process whenever you can. That's just my observation. I was just curious because I didn't see any commissioners besides Dan here tonight who I know.
Well, Jen.
Well, Jen-
Oh, and Jen, okay, I'm sorry.
Jen's
Who's
our
done,
chairman.
a ton of work
There
as
was
well.
only 3 commissioners at the time,
Okay,
so 2 out of 3 of us are here.
during the transition. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And and Dan personally walked 90% of the land with his own, so he was very, very involved in it. And he and Maura worked very closely with it, and he completely backs it, and I completely back it. And Al, who was the commissioner on the board at the time too. We did vote it on the last meeting.
Good to know.
This is kind of the technical phase, but once you pick your designer, you really need to have everybody involved, the youth groups, the high school, Kevin's people. I use an example, we were designing a field, and the DPW director looked at it, Linfield, and said, these gates aren't big enough, I can't get my equipment through these gates. So, once we get activists on board, then that open public process has to be involved to make sure that there's a track in the right place, don't put the jumping pit there, you need to move smaller nets through here, and that's when the commission and all those groups are going to have to get involved, yeah.
Okay.
John?
By not taking low bidder, won't be a problem? It was a 30B.
It's not subject to 30B because it's a design, you're picking a design, and that's the way we bid it. We evaluated each proposal separately and then opened the bidding and actually found out what the cost was after.
Okay.
So it's
Based on
an-
qualifications.
Okay.
ranking, no money.
How does the board feel? I respect the process and your decision. I'm a little concerned, there's a $50,000 differential, that's a lot of money. But
I
I'm
think
just
the
asking
value
you.
added is having, I think you're absolutely right, to have a principal of the firm, it's going to be there, we're going to get the attention and that is valuable. And I really do think that's important. I don't know him at all, but in other construction projects, if the guy's around, he's going to be watching it more closely. And that's good for us. But saying that, this is just the engineering design, this is not the build.
John? Thoughts?
I'm going to just say it. I don't know if it's going to make much sense. Can you go back to Activitas?
Oh, yeah.
See-
I did.
Oh,
I did.
Yeah, we did.
and what was the answer?
No.
What if we say to go back and ask, and, it might be like this? I'm just, to everyone's point,
He mentioned that this is the lowest they could go. They'd usually probably be close to 100 more than that on this project.
so it was okay to ask then.
Who, just now that I've started thinking this through, do they do construction as well, this company, or is they construction management, or
They'll manage,
they would manage,
They'll do the bidding, they'll be the project manager.
do the
but they don't have a
whole
construction
9 yards? But this doesn't, of course, include that. This is just to get to that point.
Yeah, this isn't the construction, the cabinet's just the design.
I see the RFP.
But you said they'll have all the full full documents and all of that.
This just has, it has, in all of them, they just gave a price to, we told them the budget for 6 public meetings, and then during the project, to plan on coming out once weekly and overseeing, making sure the project.
Oh, that's included in this price?
So,
Contract will be written, that part will be broken off if we don't appropriate funds.
Okay, and is it written that way? Or,
I don't have it, but it will, yeah.
oh, this, you haven't even written,
So
okay.
they are involved in at least the review of the construction during the phasing.
Yeah, which is very important.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, so to that point, you rated them the highest, and I'm sure they got the lowest from a cost aspect. So what were those attributes that tipped them to be the highest? So you rated them as a 115, and Gale Associates, which was $50,000 less, was at a 110. So I'm just curious, what were those 5 points that really stuck out, aside from him being a resident and you wanting to be loyal and feeling that he's,
well, we had 5 different categories that we did each particular place on. So it's not 5 particular points. It might have been, we did each project as a technical approach, project management, related experience, how their schedule looked, and we tallied that with all 5 people, and then added those, and that was their total score. So if somebody didn't like the second company, they might have given them a little bit of a lower score for something they said. The third company couldn't even spell Jim's name correctly, and he had a bunch of typos, so they looked horrible. But that's how we did the evaluation on those.
based on spelling?
No, on the approach, but I mean, we figured if they couldn't put the time in to get the spelling correct, what are we gonna get for a product,
Oh, that's fair.
And that's how the rating was.
Tony?
Yeah, I mean, just listen to the names that Bill read.
Yeah, you're gonna pay for that,
it's-
yeah.
No, they're good. They wouldn't be
Yeah,
hired by
yeah,
Harvard,
yeah.
they wouldn't be hired by MIT, they wouldn't be hired by BC. They do this for a living, they do it right, and somebody mentioned they'll probably save us more than $50,000 in change orders, by designing it properly
It's a good point.
and using the space effectively.
Right,
And I bet
there's,
if we asked them to include the tennis court, if you're watching, Mr. Novak, I bet he'd do that.
So I went and asked my landscape architect from the playground, which I highly respect, and she told me they were the best. You can't get any better than them.
No, I have no problems. The problem is
Money.
what we're going to hear after the fact. And they're not going to be saying Nick or Bill or Maura or Kevin. They're going to say John, and Maura, Tony, and Sean, $50,000 more. And then all of a sudden, the ridicule will come out. And I just want to know justification, because I'm happy to say, sure, they certainly have a great resume for it. And to me, that's very important to know what you've done, because if they did our flash track, I'd be like, absolutely not, they're out. So I just want to know why, so we can explain when and if people are going to ridicule us.
But
Those people
Well,
are
they should,
reasonable to say, there's a reason why we took $52,000 more. It's because these people have done all these projects, they're top-notch, they're going to be carrying us through the entire project, reviewing it, they're not just here to design and walk away, you're getting an excellent
Good quality.
A-plus designer,
Right.
and that's what we want for our
Right.
facilities. And designing is very important, almost important as building, I guess, it depends. Because if you have a bad designer, you're going to have a bad building to begin with, but if you have a good designer, at least, hopefully, you can get a decent contractor to build it. But that's the reason why I'm asking, and I think it's important, because when you walk out of here, there's always going to be some people who are going to ridicule us for doing it, but I think it's important, so.
But could that go anywhere? It could go the other way, like, why didn't you take the best? I think it could
It's a
go the other
double-edged
way,
sword.
That's what I was
too.
gonna say.
But generally, nobody ever says, why didn't you spend more money on town taxes and spend more money to get somebody better?
No, but it's about the
Rare to have
value,
it.
right?
Exactly.
And this
I
is
get that.
top
I get that.
value.
But I'm just saying, that's why I'm trying
Yeah, I understand.
to share with you why I'm
You just
asking the
said that.
question.
But as a
I agree with
taxpayer,
you.
that's how I feel. I feel, as a taxpayer, and take me out of the situation, put me, I would want somebody to look at the best for us.
I agree.
I think we
I agree.
deserve it.
So, that being said, and seeing it's at 9:40, are there further questions from the audience on this? Anybody?
Gordon Price, 48 Manlock Road. I'm all for, increasing field opportunities for our residents, and I think it sounds like a great project. How do you endorse it? And it sounds like the course that you've chosen is a great credentials, and sometimes it's worth paying a little bit more to get that kind of person. And again, they may save you money down the road. Just one question, excuse my ignorance. Does this result in an increase in the number of fields, or just are we reworking the existing fields?
It's going to increase in the number of fields, because what they're doing, Gordon, is right now, they have the baseball field, which is bifurcated with a baseball fence. That's going to be gone. The next, they have the football field, which actually overlaps the JV field. When you take the fence down and you go from baseball field all the way across to the JV field, you're going to augment it by having approximately 4 fields that you can use. One baseball and softball's not being used. So really, taking that fence down increases basically 2 fields, if I'm not mistaken, Bill, or
I think
anybody
you're
else.
correct.
Yeah. So it's a good thing. Yeah. Any other questions?
Motion?
Is there a motion, please?
Move to award a contract to activists of Dedham, Mass. Do you want to do that? For professional design and engineering services for Scituate High School Sports Complex in the amount of $404,469, which includes $396,969 for professional design and $7,500 for reimbursable expenses.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Canfield. I was just going to say, now, what do you say second? But okay, already seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. I was going to have
Thank
to
you.
say it.
Thank you for all that work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, folks, and thank you for
Sorry for the
waiting with
grilling,
us.
but-
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Sorry, Maura, I didn't realize that it was important.
Okay, so let's get over to new business, and then we'll go from there. Let me get to new business on my, where's new
Do we need to go
business?
back to the city logo, John?
Oh, yeah, are they,
Or
they were here and they
she never
left.
came. No, was Pat here?
Yeah, Pat was here, Pat Jacquard.
No, she wasn't. Never saw her.
No, that was the, no.
I know I saw Betty Tefanction, and she was on.
Betty was here, but
Pat wasn't next to her?
No,
thought
I
they
didn't
went
see
down.
her.
I didn't see her.
Well, you know what, we should probably go,
That's a lead, but I think they need to get on the logo.
yeah, I think we should do the
Do
logo
we need to do that?
anyways.
Okay.
Why not?
Sorry.
So what we have here under agenda item 7:30, discussion vote, Sister City logo. There's a logo that's being proposed, and it's somewhat retro looking. It almost looks like passport stamps of various locations. In this case, they have Scituate, and then they have Soucy-en-Brie, which is our sister city in France, and then they have Ireland with the Westport County. Almost as kind of evocative of, you know, how they used to put them on trunks and stamps and things. So it's a cute logo. I liked it. So I'd show you a picture of it. I don't have one I can show you. It probably won't come out on this laptop or whatever. But does anybody have any questions
Couldn't
about
tell. Maybe it was manager.
It is charming.
it? Anybody want to?
Can someone explain it tomorrow?
No, John just did.
Okay. You
Thank
got it
you.
now?
Yes, no set.
I think it's very creative.
I think it is. It's cute. It's,
Pretty sure it was designed by Marie Larry.
was it?
Oh, really? One of the
She's very
members?
talented. Of Native, actually. We'll give her a plug. So, how about, do we need a motion for this, or just, do we just say, yes, we do need a motion. Move to approve the new Sister City logo.
So moved.
Motion,
Can you ask for discussion? Ask for discussion.
oh,
Just have a question.
yeah, we should have like a designated area. Or like a,
So high-tech, it's just mind-boggling.
for future reference, we should have a designated area to say, here you go, you can highlight it. That's a good thing.
Okay, great, thank you.
So there's a motion by, who?
I think you did.
Sean.
No, I didn't make it.
Sean,
By Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. Discussion.
Yes, I have one question, Mr. Chair. What will be the...
All in
u-
favor? No.
Don't get me going. What will the use of these logos be? Did they, is it just on their stationery and... Lorraine, I'm staring at you, I know, I'm sorry. You're the only one here that can speak on their behalf. Oh, so you don't know either? Okay. All right.
I don't really have the answer to that question.
T-shirts.
I'll ask and see what it is.
Yeah, it's a branding type thing.
Yeah, that's not what I wanted to hear. Okay. That was my question.
We'll get that answer to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm really getting well.
All right. Any other discussion? Any questions? No? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. And now, we have a new business, a number of one-day liquor licenses. It's a discussion vote. And if somebody wants to make a motion, clerk, you could maybe move
I don't
for
want to
these.
step on anyone. Move the Board of Selectmen approve one-day wine and malt licenses to Silent Chef for an event at the Scituate Maritime Center, July 13th, my birthday, from 6 to 10. Lavishly Done for an event at the Lucky Fin Cafe on July 14th, from 6 to 10 p.m. Tailor Made Bartending for an event at the Scituate Maritime Center on July 20th, from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. Tailor Made Bartending for an event Scituate Maritime Center on July 21st from 11:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Tailor Made Bartending for an event at Scituate Maritime Center July 21st from 6 to 10 p.m. And Ellen McKenzie for an event at the Scituate Maritime Center on July 14th from 4 to 8 p.m.
And these are in 2018, correct?
These are all 2018. yes.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Canfield, seconded by Ms. Curran. Discussion. So we invited to your Silent Chef event at the Scituate Maritime Center?
It's
on
not
your
my birthday. No, but they should invite me.
Just checking, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. Now, I think that takes us to discussion, vote of board and committee appointments.
Yep.
So, just want to make sure we've got everything lined up here.
But that's a smart event. That's the night of fireworks, too. They're doing them for me this year. Just so you know.
They do it every year for you, Karen.
How old do you say you're gonna be?
Older than you, my friend.
And older than me, too.
Y'all need to respect me.
Just had
I'll
to
be
throw that
elder.
out there, since y'all used to make me be the oldest.
All right, I know our appointments, so this will be.
Trying to get rid of
Just-
my here. Sorry.
My
Okay.
chair.
So, let's start with, if you have your committee candidates sheet that's colored green and blue, how about if we start with that? If everybody has that.
Yep.
The very first happens to be categories, the Beautification Commission,
Oh, I'm-
and there are two openings. Actually, there are more than two, so if anybody's interested.
What am I missing?
But we have two applicants, so if somebody wants to,
Let me get to the, I wrote my notes in here.
there's
So
also
this
a
is number
motion,
4.
suggested motion if you want, if anybody wants to read it.
Right, up the top, okay.
What, I'm sorry, what tab are we, this?
4.
4, okay. All right.
There's-
Didn't we vote on 3 last time?
Yeah, but I think we can go up to,
These are 2 additional renewals that came in after your last meeting.
Oh, okay.
The ones at the top.
Right. Move to reappoint Ann McVeigh and Mary Ann Palico to the Beautiful Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second?
motion by Ms. Canfield, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, we're going to turn over to, if you want, your tab 18, but otherwise, we're going to renewal of 2 people for the North River Commission.
How many people can be on that?
I think 2,
Just 2?
It's the one and then the alternate.
the alternate. I think we only have 2 people, right?
Well, we had a gentleman who's, it was his third choice, Paul Murphy,
Yeah, what was
who was one of the many people
what were his
that
other
had
choices?
applied
His
for
first is
waterways.
Waterways.
Move to reappoint Joby Norton to the North River Commission for a term of 1 year or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry.
Move to reappoint Adria Gallagher to North River Commission for a term of 1 year or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr., I'm sorry, strike that. Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we're going to move over to the Associate, question?
Nope.
Associate Building Commission. There's a position that's open. It's a renewal. I don't believe there's anybody else out looking for it other than the current person seeking to be renewed.
Move to reappoint Michael Hurley to the Public Building Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimous. Now,
60.
moving to, I guess it would be your suggested motion for number 4. This is the Historic Commission, and here we have 2 people seeking renewal and 2 people who are looking to get on, and if I'm not mistaken, there are no open positions other than the 2 people who are seeking renewal.
And one person that is up for renewal said he's happy to step off if another person comes forward.
Okay. So, anybody?
I'm sorry, what,
Historic Commission?
oh, historic, yeah.
Move to do what number? Move to reappoint Stephen Litchfield to the Historic Commission for a term of 3 years or until successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program within 30 days.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Ms. Canfield. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
So,
Would like to stay on if possible.
Oh, okay.
Just to let you know. I mean, you said if you
Gotcha.
He's been on since 2013. So, anybody?
I don't have my book open, but how many more openings do we have?
there are no
None really, there are
openings.
really no
And it's right here.
openings,
No openings in 2
just a
days.
renewal.
Just,
Right,
okay.
so we have a number of good choices here. I know Michael's done a very good job. Bob Brand did well. The other woman that was here today, Sitsky, would do well. I don't, there's just not enough spots for everybody.
Right.
Ms. Humphrey was also interested in beautification.
Correct. And
There are companies in that.
there are a few, aren't they?
Well, that's
Or-
good to
or-
know.
was beautification, or was she on the, Ms. Humphrey, or was it the
Coastal?
cultural? Situate Cultural, I think.
No, her second
Oh, her
was
husband was,
beautification. Mike's great, and he does great work. I've worked with him on a lot of committees, and there's something to be said, though, for new, and, I mean, I think that if you look at how involved she was in community work before she moved here, I think that she could bring some really excitement to the commission. And she seems to, I think she's somebody that could actually identify grants and things like that. So, I'd hate to bump Mike, but if he's willing to step aside for a new face, I would
Brian
think she
just
would.
said he wants to do it. Is he?
He would, but he's willing to step aside if you choose to.
Is this for a 3-year appointment or 1 year?
2.
2-year.
2-year.
No, 2-term,
Commission is 3 years.
3-year.
So we only have 3-year people. Right now, who do we have?
He's been on 2 terms.
Doug. These guys have all been on a long time.
This is so hard.
It is so hard. I want everybody on.
And I like the idea of Bob Brand going to these meetings and he's not even a member. I think that's pretty good.
Is he still on the library foundation?
He is on the foundation still.
He is.
Yeah, but
Okay.
and he has served for a very long
A
time.
long
on
time, I
that,
know, yeah.
The one thing I'm concerned, and I just hope, is that, and that's why I asked one of the applicants, people come before them, and it's so hard when you want to preserve history and buildings and character, that people sometimes say, no, you can't tear your house down. And it just can't be, shall we say, a one note. Can't tear your house down, you're locked into a 9-month demolition delay. I own an old building, you own an old building, you have an old building, you've got an old building, and you do. All of us have old buildings. And I'm just saying that the concern you have is, I don't know, I just hope the commission doesn't begin to say, no to everybody. because you can't do that. They have to be fair and impartial, and each application, you got to take it to see, yes, it does have significance, yes, you shouldn't, or no, you guess what? And I
this
want to make sure that
commission's- yeah.
that's the power of the commission.
And this commission's going to be looking at the gates.
Gates, they're going to be looking at any old building in town.
Yeah, but I mean, that's definitely on the
It's
horizon.
only 100 years. Once it's 100 years, they look at it.
Well, I'm happy to make a motion to reappoint Mike, especially if he's willing to stay, and it is a
Yep.
critical next couple of years. So I'll make a motion to move to reappoint Mike Cuneo to the Historic Commission for a term of 3 years, or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by Ms. Canfield. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we mentioned this before, the zoning board, they have still yet to meet. I think they're meeting next week on the 40B, or it's the end of this month, one of the two. The reason why we can't vote on it is because they're in the midst of a decision. Once that decision's rendered, then one of the members is off, and then we can vote the zoning board. So I would only ask that we continue this, Lorraine, for just this board until our next meeting.
Mr. Chair, may I ask you a question? Since Mrs. Humphrey also expressed interest in beautification, and we do have openings there, correct, Lorraine?
Yes.
Would you entertain a motion if I appoint her to that, so we engage her? She's new to town, and she'd like to help out.
For a 3-year term, until a successor to be found, providing contingent on her completing the conflict of interest. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded
Second.
by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well said,
So
Mike.
Lorraine, that was Mrs. Humphrey for beautification. Okay,
Great.
I know, my voice got deeper in the middle of it. I don't know what happened.
So,
All right, so,
Council on
next
Aging.
we're on the Council on Aging. And this is a renewal by Janice Lindblom. I leave that up to the board. I thought she wants to continue on, and in the midst of where we're at right now, I think it's important to keep continuity.
Absolutely.
She's got institutional knowledge, and she's been a strong advocate for the Council on Aging, so I'm...
A motion?
I-
Unless
yes.
people want
Somebody that everybody tried to get on, maybe for
Yeah, I see it, but I don't know if they have
planning and zoning.
want
But
to
there were
discuss
other ones,
something.
one sec.
Did we put her on thing?
No,
So,
because it's an alternate
we
position.
have one other
which
person.
We might end up appointing her.
no openings, just this one renewal.
Can
Right, but
some-
she had 3.
Remind me about Nancy, is it Hertig? Did we put her on?
Her second choice was zoning, and her third was scholarship fund. And she was the,
You had recommended to her that
Oh, yeah.
that she would consider
Fanny.
planning for an alternate position.
That's what I thought.
So I sent her an email following the information as a follow-up.
Yep.
And I sent it again this week.
She had mentioned about planning and development, her interest in that. I think the other was the Board of Health, was it, or?
Zoning, Council on Aging,
Zoning.
and Scituate Scholarship Fund. But then the conversation went into planning board.
She seemed pretty receptive, if I can remember.
yeah,
Didn't
she was
to
interested
that?
in the planning board.
But you've reached out to her and she hasn't gotten back to you?
Well,
That would go to the board.
going to the planning board directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the application
Not
is
us.
good.
Right, okay.
Was that the only application we had for Council on Aging?
Wendy's, it was fifth choice.
Wendy-
But she went to Board of Health.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. You-
Let's see then. I will move to reappoint Janice Lindblom to the Council on Aging for a term of 3 years until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Canfield. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, let's-
So, moving on to the Scituate Cultural Council. We have 4 people, possibly 5.
What tab is that?
That is tab 21. We have a lot of
You
openings.
can do whatever, it's like
Yeah, so we
a
can-
huge council.
Three that came tonight
But we also had Mr. Humphrey, who also said he was
Mhm.
interested also.
to four, yeah.
And coastal advisor is his first choice.
So why don't we do
there's two
the...
openings,
No,
or,
there's,
No, you can appoint all of them.
you
Put
can?
all four.
Yeah.
if you'd like.
Are you liaison to that, Tony?
You can have a maximum of 22 members.
I am.
John is. John's more cold.
right on top of that.
All right, so
Okay.
Well, let's put them all on there.
Yes.
move to appoint Tracy Tolner Kelly, Danielle Driscoll, and George
Denise.
Humphrey,
Denise Parker.
And Denise Parker.
and Denise Parker to the Scituate Cultural Council for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that takes care of that. Now we move on to Coastal Advisory Commission. There's only one opening on this, and then we do have a number of renewals. So,
Tab 30.
Tab 30.
8 renewals and 1 opening. So that's tab 30.
All right.
Well, yep, so Matthew Sammartino is stepping, he resigned.
That's the opening, yep.
That's the opening. I thought Mr. Grant had phenomenal qualifications as a coastal engineer. Especially when you look at the composition of this committee, a lot of them are lay people, so it would be nice to have an engineer on the committee, especially one who is so well versed in the issue. It's my comment.
He was definitely my first choice, well, for the same reason.
Yes, Stellwagen Bank,
Yeah.
Ocean,
I think my comment to him was, as soon as he said it, you're qualified. So you know how I feel.
all right, I will make a motion to appoint Jonathan Grant to the Coastal Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year or until a successor is named, and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Ms. Canfield. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'll make we don't have to reappoint the people that are mandatory, right?
I think you do, don't
We
you?
can renew them all.
We do.
Move to reappoint Kevin Cafferty, Nancy Durfee, Thomas Hall, Frank Snow, Linda Murray, Sarah Murdoch, Captain Patrick Riley, Paula Jewell, and Louise Fund.
And
To-
And Linda Murray Harding. Did you already say her?
What? Linda who?
Linda Harding, did you say her?
Where's that?
I don't know which one you're reading off of, so you may
He's
have
reading
said
out of
it.
the book.
Yeah, you
And
may have
then
said it,
there's
then
one
Linda
more on
Murray.
this, so.
Okay, that's okay, as long as you said Linda Murray.
Didn't you listen to me when I first said, get your committee?
I said them all. To reappoint to the Coastal Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year until a successor
She's
is
a
named,
hyphenated last name.
and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Ms. Curran. Discussion. Did we get Linda Murray?
Yeah, why
Harding?
about, why?
Yes, because she has a hyphenated name, he just read it as Murray.
Linda Murray.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you,
Wanna make sure
Sean.
we get the record
Good job,
straight.
Listening.
This
That
is
will
like
be
the
my
con-
last motion for the evening.
Sean gets an A for listening.
This is like the
this evening.
congressional record. You gotta make sure it's straight, right? Motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, thank you. All right, now moving on
This
to
might be fun.
waterways, which is tab 24. Now, here's the thing with waterways.
Yeah.
There is,
1, 2, 3, 4,
Um,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
what do we have
11.
here? We have 1, 2, 3,
11.
4, looks like 5, 6 people who are interested in it.
No, there's 11.
And we have renewals. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Strike that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
One's associate, though.
So, but I think if I'm not mistaken, there are 4 members who are renewing, one open associate position, in addition to the renewal one. All right, so you have an associate position that's open right now. You have an associate's position that Stephen Gard, who's seeking to be renewed. And then you have, right now for consideration, 1, 2, 3, 4 renewals. Okay, so technically, one position's open.
And you have 11 new applicants.
Yeah.
11.
So Jamie Coleman, we already placed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. 1, 2,
Right.
3, 4, 5, 6,
Jonathan Grant, we already placed.
7,
You can
8.
cross a couple of them out.
Right, so
We've already placed a few of them.
This beats the days when people were just jumping in with motions with people.
Move to appoint Howie Krutzberg to the Waterways Commission for a term of 3 years or until its successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Mr. Harris. Discussion. You said
this-
you weren't going
are
to be
you
making...
No, well,
nominating
you
him
guys
for-
will be here all night if
All
you
right.
want.
Wait, are you nominating him for the associate position, which is the only
No.
one
No.
open?
Just open.
Okay, then we need
All right.
to,
Motion by Mr.
okay.
You made the
I get-
motion.
Yep.
Kreutzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, there's one.
Move to
I
appoint
move-
James Patterson to the Waterways Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and the completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Mr. Harris, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Curran. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Move to appoint David Haley. Discussion. I'm just curious, with both fishermen, I'm wondering if one should be an associate and one should be full-time.
That would be, I talked to Dave, and that would be fine.
That would be fine?
That would be
Okay.
fine with Dave.
So
Yes.
move to appoint Dave Haley
Vacant?
to the vacant associate position. For a term of, is it 3 years for the associate as well?
Yes.
Okay, for a term of 3 years or until successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
So David Haley's the associate position. Okay.
Move to appoint Craig Rosenquist to the Waterways Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Craig.
Discussion.
All right, so we've got
Wait, did we run out?
Craig Rosenquist. We've got... We have one more, I think. Oh, no. Yes,
There's one more, isn't
we
there?
have one more.
Are you sure?
One more and an associate. Or,
No.
Or an associate renewal.
Associate renewal.
So what you have right now is you have, we have all these renewal, people who still want to remain on, who are renewal, but it comes down to what you want to
Where
do.
he goes. We have one more opening.
Move to appoint Dave Sinkowski to the Waterways Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and the completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. Discussion?
I just, we talked to so many people, but we haven't really, did Dan Sullivan come in?
Yes.
He did.
If I'm not mistaken.
He's the marine
Well,
business.
Dan was the guy that.
he's a yacht,
He's
he's
in the
a
marine.
captain.
Yeah, he's a captain and he's in the marine business
He's
development.
the
But
one that
didn't he-
deferred to Tucker.
That's
I
right.
mean, yeah.
Oh,
After
okay.
I think he is the one that.
You referred
after he saw
to
the
Dave
commercial
Haley,
fishing,
yeah, you're right.
He said.
That's right. I just was so impressed with his background, so I just wanted to,
Right. And I think he runs one of the harbor cruise
Yeah.
boats, right?
yeah, okay. I
Okay.
just, I forgot, I knew there was something I was forgetting. Okay.
There's a motion.
Second.
And, hang on, I'm just trying.
Craig Rosen.
Motion seconded by Mr. Vignani, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, discussion. I'm sorry.
We
Just
did
trying to
that.
get my bearings here. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
And I'll
Now,
move to reappoint Steve Gard as an associate.
motion by Ms. Curran,
Second?
Second.
seconded by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? What are you appointing him for? Associate,
The
right?
associate position that he's in today,
Okay, for a term of,
for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law and online training program is completed within 30 days.
sorry, I think you said it before, but I just wanted to make sure I heard it. loud and clear, so
You
the motion works.
interrupted.
He seconded you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that takes care of the 2 associates' positions.
That's everything.
That's everything.
Yeah, and
I think it does, doesn't it? Let's see, let's make sure.
I
We
feel like
have
we're short.
4. We have
1,
4 full
2,
members.
3.
1, 2.
Associate,
three.
associate.
What did
Yeah.
I miss?
Craig.
Oh, David.
Tucker.
David, I missed David.
So we have 4,
You're all set.
7, 1.
Good. And thank you for all the other members who applied and people for renewal.
And I'd like to...
Years of service.
Yeah, I'd like to thank, Fran McMillan, Brian Cronin, Mike LaRusso, and Keith Wallow for their many years of service on this committee.
And
They've done
they-
a lot of work.
And they will still attend the meetings, I'm sure, and they'll have a lot of input, positive input for that group.
Good. It only makes
Sure.
the
Stronger, yeah.
stronger, yeah, the whole...
And, well, we'll get to the, once we finish the next. Now, we're going to move on to tab 28, Sustainable South Shore. We have an applicant, Lisa Scanlon.
Move to reappoint Lisa Scanlon to Sustainable South Shore for a term of 1 year until a successor is named, and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded
Second.
by Ms. Canfield. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the Massport Authority, Logan.
Move to appoint Brad Washburn as the Massport Authority Advisor Committee Representative and the Logan Airport Community Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year until successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Mr. Vignani,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Curran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, we're going to move on to Conservation Commission, which is tab 12.
Move to appoint Douglas... But he's the only applicant. Move to appoint Douglas Auberg to the Conservation Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. All those in, I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said...
Did I say Mr.?
You said Ms. Harris.
Sorry. Folks, it's getting late. It's been long.
I didn't even
need
hear
better. Strike that.
He's going to start pointing.
Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There we go. And we have 2 renewals.
Move to reappoint Frank Snow, who has been on this board since 1997, and can I do it together?
Yes.
And Richard Harding to the Conservation Commission for a term of 3 years until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training in 30 days.
Motion
Second.
by Ms. Canfield, seconded by Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And finally, move to reappoint Doug White to the Board of Health for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Motion by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor? Aye.
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 I want to just make a point in saying, I know, Lorraine, you'll probably, I can get some letters to thank all the people who applied, or the people who've done their service and who applied. I appreciate that. I'll send something out to thank them. And although this isn't over yet, technically, I just also want to say, Lorraine, thank you. This is not an easy task, and I know in the past, sometimes it seems like this drones on and on and on, but the information provided by you and the other people in the office, but primarily you, is invaluable, and it's not easy to put it all together. I mean, that's why I kind of made light of the fact earlier between Sean and Tony. We remember days where we'd get it, and then boom, boom, boom. It was like the Old West. People would be shooting this name and saying that name, and we never really had the material as organized as we've ever had it. So I just want to say thank you. It's not easy.
I just want to add a little bit to that. There were times, we used to not invite them in.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't know that until you saw him. You'd say, who's that person? Oh, that's the person you appointed 8 months ago. So, I mean, and the candidates might not always be there, and you've said it, but it's worth repeating. I mean, we had real good candidates. That's why you're struggling for second or third, put them somewhere, and the bar keeps getting raised, and these people are really stepping up. It's wonderful.
Which is another thing, if we can, when this is completed, when you have a chance, if there's still openings at other commissions or boards. Maybe it would be interesting to know what they are, because I certainly wouldn't mind saying to some of these people who've looked to get on, would they be interested in these other appointments to help round out town boards and commissions. So I think that would be nice to ask them, because I think a lot of people, some of them just want specific topics, I get it. Some just want to be involved to help the town out and wouldn't mind being placed to be able to help their town out. So that would be nice. Okay, next we have election workers. So we need motions
Yep.
for, I think, both parties, if I'm not mistaken, or is it just one?
We already did the Republican Party, but we have the Democratic Town Committee. We have a supplemental list for the town clerk, and then we have poll hours for the state primary.
Okay. So,
Move to appoint the election poll workers from the list approved by the Democratic Town Committee.
motion by Mr. Vignani,
Second?
seconded by Ms. Curran, or was it Ms. Canfield?
Canfield.
I think it was Ms. Canfield. I thought I heard you. But,
You
all
tired,
those in
John?
favor? Aye.
Move to appoint the election workers from the town clerk's supplemental list.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Vignani, seconded by Mr. Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Busy, everyone vote, September 4th.
We need a,
Move to vote on the poll hours for the state primary to be held on September 4th, 2018, at Scituate High School Gym, 606 Chief Justice Cushing Way. Poll hours are from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m.
Wow.
motion by Mr. Harris, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Canfield.
Mr. Vigna.
Mr. Vignani.
What do you call it?
I'm losing it. Strike that. Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Ms. Canfield. All those in favor?
Somewhere else, I'm really messing up.
I know.
I'm just gonna have to use first names from now on. What do we have? Other business. We have liaison reports. I know it was a holiday
Yeah,
last week. I don't know if there's much
quiet
going
week.
on. Quiet?
List for
So that takes care of that. Correspondence? Do we have any correspondence?
I'm zipping down here. Let's see, a letter from the South Shore Regional School District Committee to the Board of Selectmen. Gentlemen, it says, as you may be aware, we are visiting annually by an auditor from Mass Department of Revenue. During his review, he determined that certified unencumbered excess and deficiency amount was $713,000 and change. We are only allowed to accumulate up to 5% of our current budget. At the end of this, they accumulated more than they should, so we got a check back, which is here somewhere, for $5,741.50.
Great job.
Great.
I know, good job. Another letter from the governor, from the Lieutenant Governor, thanking Maura for her, no, to Mr. Boudreau, thanking Scituate. I would like to take a moment to thank you for welcoming me to Scituate's Cole Parkway Municipal Marina. Your hospitality was greatly appreciated, and I commend Scituate's prioritization of the development of its marina. The ways in which this construction will benefit Scituate are infinite, and I commend you. Maintaining coastal communities of Massachusetts takes tenacity and drive, as strong communities lead a strong Commonwealth, and I remain dedicated supporter of this and look forward to the final outcome of this project. Signed, Karen Polito. And, reminder that Thursday, July 19th is the South Shore Pier Recovery Center's grand opening. It runs from 5 to 7 o'clock. It's located at 51 Cole Parkway. You can stop by any time. There'll be a short program and ribbon cutting at 6 p.m. And that's it.
Good. Other business?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Please.
The Coastal Advisory Commission is going to be hosting a public informational meeting on Tuesday, July 17th. Karen's going to cover for me. Thank you. It's to cover the town's municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. So it will be facilitated by the MAPC. And the meeting begins at 6 p.m. and it will be at the Scituate Community Center next Tuesday. So if folks continue to be interested in our resiliency plan for our coastal situation, it's a great time to show up, learn, give some input, and whatnot. So that's all. Thank you.
Tony?
Whatever, you want to go?
Just one other reminder, this Thursday, July 12th, from 6:30 to 9:30, the Scituate Soucy Ambry Sister City Partnership is celebrating Bastille Day in a fundraiser, and the information, I think, is on our website, or you can Google the Sister City program, and that'll be fun. There's wine and cheese involved. That's it.
Fireworks?
Thursday night, I don't think so.
That's what I was going to say that. We're going to that. It should be fun. It's on
10 Jericho.
10 Jericho Road. Is
Yep.
that someone's house?
Yes. It's actually, it's going to be a great location. The weather's there. I encourage everybody.
Yeah.
It's a great event.
Great fundraiser
Yep.
for the Sister City program. And then also the carnival is this week. So those are the two fun events going on this week.
All right. Tony, Sean?
Jim, what was, we saw an email that came through, Forthcliffe is you're having another meeting with the Air Force folks.
Yeah, I have to look up what it is.
The end of the month, though, I just didn't want to miss it. You sent us an email. That was all that I had, John.
If anybody's interested, I guess on July 17th, Climate Community Resilience Workshop.
That's what you just said.
Oh, you did. All right, good. Take care of that.
But it bears repeating,
All
Mr.
right, the last thing I'll hit is the July 19th Classic Car Show down at Cole Parkway, 6 to 8 p.m. Aside from that, the only other thing I wanted to say is, what's that?
4th of July went well.
4th of July. Actually, it did go well. I think it went really well in Hummerock. I think Sand Hills had the best fireworks this year, although I think some people say elsewhere, but they were pretty impressive. They're illegal, you're not supposed to shoot them off, but they look pretty nice.
From Cohasset, they were.
I think they were, they definitely were. But that's not what I was actually going to say. I was going to say that there was some sad news that I came across about a week and a half ago, and I actually had it confirmed. There was a former town employee who had passed, Nancy Ivas. She worked in the building department for a number of years, very pleasant lady, and she died at a young age of 59. And I just wanted to say to her family, it's very sad. Sean had mentioned it to me, and I looked it up, and I have to say I was very sad, because I'd worked with her when I was on the zoning board, and a very nice person, and her husband and the family. But I just wanted to say that, she certainly remembered. I know when you work with somebody and they pass, it's very sad. Sometimes you hear people who passed who used to be former town employees, and you may not have had contact with them, but this one I did, and I just wanted to say to the board it's unfortunate, but just wanted to say sorry and sympathies to the family. Aside from that, any other? Entertain a motion?
Move to adjourn and sign
We have
documents.
to do meeting minutes.
Oh, jeepers. I'm doing a
Move
terrible
to
job
accept the
here.
minutes for the
Let's
Board
go.
of Selectmen meeting held on June 19th, 2018.
Motion by Ms. Canfield, seconded by Mr. Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now can we do
Motion
a
to
motion?
adjourn and sign documents.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vignani, seconded by Ms. Curran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good night, folks. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.